I wanted to marry the future Demoness. Inside the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the atmosphere was suffocating. My father, the Emperor, sat upon the throne, his majestic voice pressing down on the civil and military officials until every head was bowed. If there is business, speak. If not, the court is adjourned. Father, I called out, my voice sounding a bit lazy in the heavy silence. Your son has a request. The officials couldn't help but steal glances at me. I was wearing a black robe embroidered with cloud patterns, standing right at the front of the line. My father, the Emperor, the man everyone called the Fifth because of his rank among his own brothers, opened his eyes slightly. The rhythmic tapping of his finger on the armrest stopped instantly. Speak, he commanded. I wish to marry Yi Lian, the daughter of General Yi Fan, I said, my voice ringing clearly through the hall. I ask for your imperial blessing. Silence. It was the kind of silence that felt like death. To my right, the Duke of the State, Yi Tiance, had been dozing off. The moment he heard the names of his son and granddaughter, his eyes snapped wide open. Suddenly, the quiet hall erupted into a frenzy of whispers. The Prince of Chu wants to marry that unlucky girl, someone hissed. The other princes avoid her like the plague. Who knows what he went through during those 5 years away? Maybe he wants the Yi family's power. Watch your tongue. Yi Tiance turned his head, his voice a raspy, angry growl. Who is so concerned about my granddaughter? Why don't you come talk to me about it? The room went cold. The whispers died instantly. The Emperor looked at me as I maintained my bow. Sixth son, your servant is here, I replied. Granted. He didn't even blink. He glanced at the old eunuch beside him, Miao Dong. The old man bowed immediately. This servant will prepare the decree at once. The Emperor waved his hand, signaling the end of the session. Dismissed. The old eunuch cracked his whisk and shouted in his high-pitched, duck-like voice, Court is adjourned. The officials were stunned. They stared up in shock. The Emperor had actually let that cursed girl into the royal family, and he hadn't given them a single second to protest. Honestly, even I was a bit dazed. He agreed just like that? So straightforward. I had prepared several versions of a speech to argue with those word-twisting civil officials, but I didn't even get to use them. Yi Tiance gave me a long, deep look, a tiny smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I bowed and left the hall. As I walked out, I became the star of the show. Princes and ministers crowded around me. Some offered congratulations, others threw hidden insults and cold sarcasm. I didn't care. I smiled at everyone. It was a good day. I hummed a little tune as I walked toward the palace gates. My name is Lin Yuan. Well, in this life, I am Shun Yan, the Prince of Chu. I'm a traveler. I went to sleep one night and woke up in a womb. When I opened my eyes, I was the sixth son of the Emperor of the Great Qin dynasty. People call me Old Six. It's a good status, but the thought of fighting my brothers for the throne gave me a massive headache. If I stayed a powerless prince, who knew if the winner would purge me later? Back then, I had 3 plans. Plan A, be a child prodigy, win dad's favor, and fight for the throne. Plan B, use my modern knowledge to get rich, hide my strength, and wait for an opening. Plan C was the simplest. Get rich, train secret guards, and run away. The world is big. With money and bodyguards, I could live like a king anywhere. But after living in luxury for a while, I realized something terrifying. The names of the people around me sounded way too familiar. This wasn't just some random historical world. This was the world of a cultivation novel I had read on a sketchy website back in my old life. And I, Shin Yan, was male lead number 1. The story was insane. There were 5 or 6 male leads, but only 1 heroine and 1 female villain. The heroine, Guroi, was the long-lost daughter of a marquis. In the book, she was basically a human magnet. Every man who saw her, including me, was supposed to lose his brain and fall madly in love with her. Then there was the villainess, Yi Lian. She was born with pale blue eyes. In this world, that was seen as a sign of a demon, an omen of bad luck. Everyone feared her, except for me. In the original plot, we met as kids. I told her her eyes were beautiful. It was the first time anyone had ever complimented her, and that tiny spark turned into a deep, hidden obsession. But the story turned into a tragedy. The original me fell for the heroine, and Yi Lian went insane with jealousy. She became a literal demoness, trying to destroy the dynasty. The ending was a total wreck. Everyone lived happily ever after except for the villainess. She died by my sword. Then, the heroine, supported by all her male lovers, became the first female empress of a different surname. Thinking about it now, I can't believe I actually finished reading that garbage. But since I know the plot, there's no way I'm following it. The role of male lead. Anyone can have it. I'm out. The heroine? If you guys want to join her harem, be my guest. I'm going to marry the girl who only has eyes for me. People call her a demoness? Let them try saying that to my face. I've been laying low for years, and while I might be a little nervous about facing my father, I'm not afraid of anyone else. Prince of Chu, a voice called out. It was Yi Tiance. He caught up to me and bowed. I gave him a warm smile. General Yi. I must thank you, Your Highness, he said. His voice was soft now, nothing like the lion who had roared in the hall earlier. I waved it off. I made a promise to Lian years ago. I don't break my word. Yi Tiance stunned for a moment, then smiled. Have you had breakfast? Perhaps we could eat together? Actually, I heard a new morning tea house opened in the North Market, I said. Have you been? He sighed. I'm ashamed to say I rarely go out unless it's for court. Old age makes me lazy. No matter. I haven't been either. Let's go see what the fuss is about. Haha. Then I'll let Your Highness show this old man the world. As we walked through the North Market, I looked at the ancient buildings lining the streets. I've been gone for 5 years, I mused. The capital has changed so much I hardly recognize it. Yi Tiance couldn't help himself. If I may ask, where exactly did Your Highness go during those 5 years? I chuckled. When I was 13, I had left a single note and vanished from the palace. My father had been furious, turning the entire state machine of the great Qin dynasty upside down to find me. But I had simply disappeared. I disappeared when I was 13, leaving only a single note. My father, the emperor, had turned the entire state machine of the great Qin dynasty upside down just to find me. For 5 years, the search never stopped. Then, just as suddenly as I had vanished, I returned to Tianwu City. It caused a massive stir. After being confined to the palace for half a year, I wasn't just a runaway prince anymore. My father titled me the Prince of Chu, a rank of immense prestige. His favor made everyone uneasy. The emperor was in his prime, and while the throne wasn't up for grabs yet, people were already picking sides. My sudden return made the political waters very murky. What did I do for 5 years? I repeated Yi Tiance's question. I looked up at the vast, blue sky. I entered the martial world. I met some people. I fought a lot of battles. I found some treasures, searched for my own path, and took a good look at the world. I gave him a modest smile, but the truth was deeper than a few stories could cover. Yi Tiance laughed and stroked his beard. He was a military man, but he had tasted the life of the wandering martial artist in his youth. The martial world is vast, he said, his eyes gleaming. If I were young again and had no burdens, I'd be out there with a sword and a horse. Tell me, Your Highness, was it interesting? Much more interesting than Tianwu City, I said softly. We both burst into laughter. Across the city, in a quiet pavilion by a lake, a different scene unfolded. The sound of a zither drifted through the air, clear and sharp like a sword in a deep valley. Yi Lian sat there, her skin as pale as frost, looking like a goddess descended to earth. Her eyes were beautiful, but her long, dark hair fluttered in the spring breeze as her fingers danced across the strings. Wow, a maid whispered by the shore. Miss is getting even better. That's nothing, a taller maid replied proudly. You should have seen her play when the birds gathered around and the fish jumped from the water. Jin Xiao, Jin Lian, Lian's cold voice called out. The two maids hurried over. Lian stood up, and a black silk ribbon was tied around her eyes, hiding the gaze that reflected the stars. Help me back, she said. As they walked toward her study, she asked, Has grandfather returned yet? Not yet, miss, Jin Xiao answered. He's usually back from court by now. Something must have delayed him. Then I'll wait, Lian murmured. Back in the market, I handed 2 pearwood boxes to Yi Tiance's guards. They were filled with hot tea and snacks from the new shop. Take these back, General, I said. Let Lian try them while they're still fresh. I'll be going then, Yi Tiance smiled. I'll expect a visit from you soon. Once he was gone, I turned to the shopkeeper. How is business? Prosperous. Thanks to your highness, he bowed low. Good. If General Yi comes again, don't take his money. Just say I've already paid. I left the tea house and headed back to my manor. My butler, a massive man with a thick beard and a voice like thunder, met me at the gate. His name was Min Du. When he shouted, the neighbors probably thought a storm was coming. Your Highness. You're back, he roared. Min Du, I said, rubbing my ears. Volume. Sorry, Your Highness, he blushed. Go to the study. Bring Cheng Hai. A few minutes later, I was sitting in my study in a simple leather chair I designed myself. Standing before me were Min Du and Cheng Hai, my captain of the guards. Cheng Hai was a focused young man with dark skin and a long blade at his hip. Min Du, I started. What's the word on the city gates? Just as you expected, Your Highness. A carriage arrived this morning and went straight to the Marquis of Wuqing's estate. Gu Ruai, I whispered. The gears of the story were finally turning. Gu Ruai's arrival at the Marquis's manor was the spark. Soon, she would catch the eyes of every prince and noble in the city, and a chain of events would follow. I didn't care about her, but I needed to know the timeline. Keep watching the Marquis's estate, I ordered. And Cheng Hai, there are too many eyes on my manor lately. Deal with them. Understood, Highness, Cheng Hai replied. Once they left, a cloud of black mist swirled in the corner of the room. A slender man wearing a bronze mask stepped out. This was Inzai. I wasn't surprised to see him. What did you find? I asked, sipping my tea. The withered northern elder has left the Evernight city, Inzai rasped. Zishu is tracking him. A cold smile touched my lips. I thought that old dog would hide for longer. The withered northern elder was a high-ranking official of the demon sect. In the original story, he was the one who pushed Yi Lian toward the darkness. He wanted her spirit eyes. They weren't a curse or a disease. They were a rare gift that appeared once in 1,000 years. She held the potential for both divinity and demonhood. The elder's goal was to break her spirit so she would awaken her demon eyes and become a vessel for the demon sect leader. To do that, he needed her to lose everything, her family, her reputation, and the person she loved. But there was something that didn't add up. If the demon sect could find her using secret arts, why hadn't the great Qin Empire's own living immortal found her first? The state teacher, Lu Wenshuan, was supposed to be able to calculate anything under the sun. Why had he stayed silent about her since the day she was born? I hadn't seen the old man yet, but I intended to find out. I sat back, my mind racing. What exactly was the Shun family planning for Yi Lian? I couldn't believe they were in the dark. It was impossible. My grandfather's attitude today made it clear. He knew the truth. The royal family cared about reputation more than anything. If they didn't have a specific reason, why would they ever allow me to marry a woman everyone called a curse? I thought about it for a long time, but eventually, I gave up. My grandfather's mind was a labyrinth. I wasn't going to solve it today. I'd deal with whatever came when it arrived. For now, I had a more urgent problem to solve. A cold, sharp, killing intent flared in my eyes. The withered northern elder will definitely pass through Tianmen Pass, I said, looking toward the corner. Tell Yin Hu and the others to ambush him there. And you, go with them. Don't let that old dog escape. Inzai bowed, his masked face unreadable, and vanished into the shadows. News traveled fast in the capital. By the time the morning court session ended, the entire city of Tianwu was buzzing. It wasn't just about me being named King Chu anymore. No, the real shockwave came from a request I'd made in front of all the civil and military officials. Did you hear? King Chu asked the emperor to grant him a marriage. Which family is the lucky lady from? Keep your voice down. It's the daughter of the Duke of Zhen's estate. What? The unlucky one? Is King Chu out of his mind? The rumors were wild. Some said I'd lost my sanity. Others whispered that despite the curse, Yi Lian was a peerless beauty. But the common folk were skeptical. In their minds, a lady from a military family wasn't some delicate, refined poet. They expected someone like the niece of the Marquis of Dongping, a woman 9 feet tall who could wrestle bears with her bare hands. They assumed I was marrying a giant in a dress. Meanwhile, at the Eastern Palace, the residence of the Crown Prince, a thin trail of incense smoke drifted through the air. Your Highness, the 5th Prince is here to see you, a eunuch announced. Shen Mukin, The crown prince opened his eyes. He looked cold and composed as he adjusted his purple sleeves. Let him in. Big brother, why do you always burn this stuff? Doesn't it choke you? The voice arrived before the man did. Shun Tungfeng, dressed in fiery red robes, waved the smoke away as he strode toward the bed. Shen Yukin sat up, looking annoyed. What do you want this time? Shin Tungfeng rubbed his hands together, grinning like a fox. I'm here to help you solve your problems, brother. What problems? Shin Yukin frowned. The morning court. Weren't you there? Old Six wants to marry that cursed girl from the Yi family. Shin Yukin didn't blink. That's his business. Why do you look so upset? Don't tell me you've fallen for her too? God, no. Shin Tungfeng waved his hands frantically. I've never even seen her face. With the rumors I've heard, I walked the long way around just to avoid the Duke's estate. No, brother, I'm thinking about you. Go on then, Shin Yukin said, leaning his head on his hand. Shin Tungfeng coughed and rubbed his fingers together. How much is this advice worth? 500 taels? No. 300? He watched his brother's face and quickly corrected himself. 200. 200 is enough. Achan, Shin Yukin called to the eunuch, show him out. Wait. 100. Just 100 taels. Brother, you wouldn't let me starve in the streets, would you? Shin Yukin sighed and raised a hand. Speak. Shin Tungfeng brightened up immediately. If old Six marries that girl, he gets the Yi family behind him. Sure, she's cursed, but the Yi family has massive influence in the military. The Duke is a veteran of 2 reigns. He was the Grand Marshal. If a man like that supports old Six, don't you feel threatened? Why should I? Shin Yukin asked, seemingly indifferent. Aren't you afraid he'll? Shin Yukin cut him off with a look so cold it froze the words in Shun Tungfeng's throat. What have I told you? Some things should stay buried in your gut. Never say them out loud. I just meant, we should ruin the wedding, Shin Tungfeng muttered, scratching his head. He needed his brother to stay on top, so he could keep living his playboy lifestyle. The imperial decree has been issued, Shin Yukin said, standing up. There's no taking it back. Unless you want to go tell father he made a mistake. Shin Tungfeng turned pale and waved his hands. No way. Father would skin me alive. Shin Yukin walked over and patted his brother's shoulder. Next time you need money, just ask. Stop making up excuses. And try to behave so father might actually give you a title one day. Maybe then you can move out of the palace. I'm trying. Shin Tungfeng complained. But father deducts my allowance every month. I'm broke and hungry. How am I supposed to behave? Stop visiting brothels and getting into trouble, Shin Yukin snapped. Achan, take him to get his money and get him out of here. Across the city, at the Duke of Zhen's estate, a high-ranking eunuch named Su arrived with a golden scroll. He was flanked by a small army of guards and attendants. Miss, why are there so many people from the palace? The maid, Jean Lian, whispered. Be quiet, Yi Lian murmured, her voice trembling slightly. Duke Yi Tian stepped forward, cupping his hands. Manager Su. Congratulations, Duke, Su said with a greasy smile. Please, receive the decree. The entire household knelt. By the emperor's command, Su read aloud. Yi Lian, daughter of General Yi Jun, is known for her virtue and grace. To honor her family, she is hereby betrothed to King Chu as his princess consort. Give thanks. I accept the decree, Yi Tian said, taking the scroll. Beside him, Yi Lian's body shook. Manager Su glanced at her. People called her a curse, but even with the black silk ribbon covering her eyes, her beauty was undeniable. He finally understood why a prince would want her. Fu, the Duke called out. The estate manager stepped forward and expertly slipped a heavy bag of silver into Su's hand. A little something for tea, the Duke said. Su's eyes practically turned into slits from his wide grin. Then I shall take my leave. Congratulations again. As soon as the palace officials were gone, the Duke spat on the ground. Old eunuch dog. He hated being polite to those people, but today, he was in a good mood. Miss, are you okay? Jean Xiu cried out in worry. The Duke turned around and froze. The black silk ribbon over Yi Lian's eyes was soaked. 2 wet trails ran down her cheeks. Lian, what's wrong? Yi Lian shook her head quickly, supported by her maids. Nothing, grandfather. I'm so happy. The Duke had told her something good would happen today, but she never imagined this. The man she had thought about every single day and night was finally coming for her. In that moment, the years of pain turned into a flood of tears that she couldn't hold back. My grandfather, Yi Tiance, watched her with a heavy heart. He had lived a long life, but seeing his poor granddaughter finally find a good home was the only thing he needed to die without regrets. Meanwhile, back at my own manor, a servant came running in, slightly out of breath. "Your Highness, the fifth prince is here to see you. He says he's come to offer his congratulations." "Congratulations?" I shook my head with a smile. "He's probably just here to ask for money." In the city of Tianwu, from the emperor down to the street beggars, everyone knew the reputation of the fifth prince, Shen Tengfeng. He was a notorious rogue. I told the servant to bring him to the garden, then headed to the pavilion to wait. I ordered some tea and snacks, settling in. Shen Tengfeng was the second male lead in the original story. Don't let his stubborn, playful attitude fool you. The fact that he could navigate the treacherous waters between the princes and the ministers meant he was far from ordinary. "Sixth brother," he shouted before he even stepped into the courtyard. A flash of fiery red clothes blurred past the servant as he sprinted toward me. I stood up and smiled. "Fifth brother, what wind blew you here today?" "I'm here to congratulate you, of course," he laughed loudly, making himself at home. "When's the big day? I need to know so I can come drink your wedding wine and soak up some of that good luck." I glanced pointedly at his empty hands. "You came to congratulate me empty-handed?" He looked a bit awkward and rubbed his clothes. "Sixth brother, you know how it is. Royal father is always docking my salary. I'm a bit short on cash lately. But I promise, when you get married, I'll make it up to you." "Hee hee. I'm just happy you're here," I replied calmly. Brotherly love doesn't need to be proven with worldly possessions. That seemed to make him even more embarrassed. He had definitely come here to borrow, or rather, scam, some money. I gestured for him to sit. "Try these. They're new snacks from Huaxiang Pavilion. I thought we could enjoy them together." He stared at the delicate pastries on the stone table and gulped. "Sixth brother, you're living the high life. These snacks must be worth 100 taels of silver." Ever since Huaxiang Pavilion became a sensation, it had become the obsession of the elite in Tianwu. Their products were always sold out, and the prices for new items were astronomical. "You're joking," I said. "I just happened to know a master who is friends with the owner. I got these for free." "A master?" He gripped his teacup, eyes wide with curiosity. "Who?" "Royal father." "Uffed." Shen Tengfeng turned his head and sprayed a mouthful of tea across the grass. The snacks from Huaxiang Pavilion were famous for being loved by the imperial concubines, so the palace was their biggest customer. "Royal father gave these to you?" He looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Didn't you get any?" I blinked, acting completely innocent. "I thought everyone got a share. A red-robed eunuch brought a whole carriage full of them to my gate yesterday." Shen Tengfeng clutched his chest. He lived in the palace, yet he hadn't seen a single crumb. Did our father dislike him that much? Or had he just forgotten he existed? To vent his frustration, he began stuffing the pastries into his mouth like he was seeking revenge. He choked a few times, but he didn't stop. They were sweet in his mouth, but his heart was bitter. "If you like them that much, take the rest home," I offered. "I can't finish them all anyway." "Oh, sixth brother, you're too good to me." He wiped his mouth, looking genuinely moved. "Don't worry. If you ever need anything, just ask. I've got your back." After making his grand promises, he left the manor carrying a huge bag of snacks. But as he walked past a gambling house and heard the familiar shouts of the players, he suddenly froze. Wait, hadn't he gone to the Chu Manor to borrow money? How did he end up leaving with nothing but a bag of food? "Damn it," he muttered. "I got played by old Sixth." He looked at the bag of snacks and realized he needed a sucker to buy them. He spotted a young man in expensive silk robes and grabbed his arm. "Hey, brother. You look like a man of taste. I have these rare snacks from Huaxiang Pavilion. 500 taels, and they're yours. It's a steal." The young man looked at him like he was an idiot and shoved his hand away. "Are you sick? Where did this lunatic come from?" Slap. Shen Tengfeng's smile turned predatory. He delivered a stinging backhand and flashed his golden imperial waistplate. "Look closely at who you're insulting. Do you know the penalty for insulting royalty? I'll ask you again. 500 taels. Buying or not?" You're the fifth prince?" The young man turned pale, clutching his swollen cheek. "You just insulted me. You understand the situation, right? The young man looked like he was about to cry. Your Highness, I only have 200 taels on me. That's fine. I like making friends. Today, you're my friend. Come, let's go have a heart-to-heart talk. Shin Tengfing slung an arm around the guy's shoulder and led him away, grinning like a maniac. He had expected a small fish, but he'd caught a fat sheep instead. Back at the manor, I called for my guard, Mindo. Go to Huaxiang Pavilion. Get some fresh snacks and a fruit cake. Mindo hesitated. Is that all, Your Highness? Are we heading to the Duke's estate? That's all. And take this. Show it to the owner, and he'll know what to do. I tossed him a black iron token. Once he left, I sat by my chessboard and closed my eyes. I released my spiritual sense, letting it drift outward until it hit an invisible wall. I was still just a bit short of the next realm. They say that at the highest level, one's mind can travel 10,000 miles in an instant. The original plot of this world was now just a reference. The future was unknown. But as long as I had enough strength, I didn't need to fear the unknown. You're finally here, I whispered without opening my eyes. Care for a game? A man in long, flowing black robes appeared and bowed. Fuxing greets the prince. Fuxing was the leader of the Shadow Guards, a secret force I had built myself. It was made up of orphans I had raised and talented outcasts I had recruited. It wasn't a massive army, but it was enough to protect those I cared about. Without a word, he sat across from me and placed a black stone on the board. I smiled and countered with a white one. Later that day, as my carriage rolled through the streets, my guard Shanghai leaned close to the window. Your Highness, someone is following us. His hand was tight on his sword hilt. He had already cleared out the spies around the manor, but new ones had appeared. Don't worry about it, I said from inside the carriage. Someone will handle it. The old men in the court were getting restless. Ever since I moved out of the palace, they wanted to know everything. Even when I went to the bathroom, they sent these low-level thugs to test the waters. They were like flies. If you don't swat them, they just keep gathering. I lifted a corner of the curtain and glanced into a dark, narrow alley we were passing. From the shadows, I heard the faint, sharp sound of blades cutting through flesh. Then, the faint scent of blood drifted into the air. Fuxing vanished back into the darkness of the alley. I pulled the carriage curtain shut, my hand steady. This was Tianwu City. Right under the emperor's nose, people died every day just to serve the interests of the powerful. It was a cold, brutal reality. Your Highness, we have arrived at the Jinghua mansion, Shanghai announced. He helped me down from the carriage. Old General Yi Tiance was already rushing out to meet me, alerted by his stewards. Prince Chu, I didn't expect such an honored guest today, he shouted, his voice booming. I smiled and bowed slightly. General Yi, I came in a hurry last time. I brought some small gifts today. I hope you won't despise them. He laughed, his face beaming with genuine warmth. You're too kind. Why bring gifts to my house? We exchanged pleasantries as we walked. Truth was, I had been running to this mansion to play with his granddaughter, Yi Lian, since we were children. We were childhood sweethearts. In many ways, Yi Tiance probably knew me better than my own father, the emperor. He trusted me. When I suddenly left Tianwu City, poor Lian had withered away from missing me. If it wasn't for the letters I sent to prove I was safe, she might have fallen ill from a broken heart. Time really did fly. The little sixth prince had grown into the Prince of Chu. We moved into the main hall. Yi Tiance knew exactly why I was there. He wasn't the type of man to get in the way of a young couple. Your Highness, I have some business to attend to. I'll have the chef prepare a feast to welcome you back, he said. I nodded. Please, don't let me keep you. He leaned in with a grin. Lian is waiting in the study. You can find your own way. I felt my face heat up. Even as a prince, I couldn't help but blush. The old general just laughed and walked away. I walked toward the study. Near the door, two little heads were poking out. It was Jinxiu and Jinlian, Lian's maids. Sister Jinxiu, is Prince Chu really that handsome? The younger one whispered. Didn't you see him last time? Jinxiu asked. I was too far away, Jinlian pouted. Jinxiu sighed. Let's just say, he and Our Lady are a match made in heaven. There is no one else like him. I stepped into the room. As I entered, Jinlian froze. She looked at me like she was seeing a god. My strength had grown recently, and with it, my presence had changed. I looked like someone who had stepped out of a painting, elegant, ethereal, and a little dangerous. Both maids were completely dazed. Leanne was there, scolding the girls for being rowdy. When she saw me, her voice died in her throat. She lowered her head quickly, looking flustered. I could tell what she was thinking. She was worried I'd think she was a mean person for being strict with her maids. I just smiled. No need for formalities, I said. It was a bit sad. As we got older, the rules got stricter. Back in the day, she would have just jumped up and grabbed my arm. Jinxiu, you two can head out, I said. Once they were gone, I looked at Leanne. She had a black silk ribbon tied around her eyes again. Why is this back on? I asked softly. Your Highness, Before she could finish, I stepped close. A gentle breeze followed me. I reached out and untied the ribbon. Her eyes fluttered open to the bright light. I quickly cupped my hand over them to shade her. Slowly. Don't hurt your eyes. Her ears turned bright red. She looked so delicate. I looked at her and felt my heart soften. In the beginning, maybe I just wanted to change the story. I thought if everyone else chased the heroines, I would chase the demoness. But over time, I had actually fallen for this sweet girl. I wasn't going to let the original plot destroy her. Not on my watch. Her eyes finally adjusted. She looked at me, her own eyes turning red as she fought back tears. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer last time, I said. Her eyes were still the most beautiful things I had ever seen. She shook her head, her face flushing like a peach blossom. Just having you here is enough. I hesitated, then reached out and took her hand. She trembled, but she didn't pull away. In this world, holding hands was a massive deal. If the scholars saw us, they would be writing angry poems for weeks. I didn't care. Let's go to the pavilion by the lake, I said. I'll tell you some stories about the world outside. We sat by the water. She leaned in, her blue eyes bright with curiosity. Your Highness, who is stronger, the four-sword immortals or the sword saint? She asked. She had spent her whole life inside these walls. The outside world was a mystery to her. I took a sip of tea. In my opinion, the old sword saint. That title alone puts him above the rest. I went to southern Jian City 3 times to challenge him. The first time, I knew I couldn't win, so I ran. The second time, I stayed. He broke a few of my ribs. Leanne gasped, her face turning pale. She grabbed my sleeve, her hands shaking. Ribs? I have medicine. My father left some in the mansion. I'll go get it right now. I caught her hand and laughed. Silly girl, I said, a soft smile tugging at my lips. If you have spirit medicine here, do you really think the Imperial Palace is lacking in it? Relax. Your prince is perfectly fine. Leanne blushed, her face turning a delicate shade of pink. Your Highness. Leanne isn't silly, she murmured in a voice so sweet it made my heart skip a beat. She was too cute. I couldn't take it anymore. In that moment, I made a silent vow. In the next couple of days, I was going to find her grandfather and set a wedding date. We were getting married. It had to happen. Prince of Chu. Miss. Jinxiu came running toward us, breathless. The 5th prince, Shun Tingfeng, has arrived. I raised an eyebrow. Shun Tingfeng really lived up to his reputation for showing up wherever there was free food and drink. To think he had even followed me to the Jinghua mansion. Let's go meet my 5th brother, I said to Leanne. He just shook me down for a big bag of pastries earlier today. Your Highness, wait a moment. Leanne instinctively reached for the black silk ribbon on the table. She wanted to cover her eyes again. I moved faster and grabbed it first. Silly girl, why do you keep wearing this? But, Your Highness. She lowered her head, her voice trailing off. I knew why she did it. I knew about the rumors. To the world, she was the omen of misfortune, a demoness. Those words were like thorns buried deep in her heart. Covering her eyes was her way of hiding, a small bit of self-deception to dull the pain. She probably spent her nights wondering if someone like her was even worthy of me. She probably thought it was better to hide in a corner and watch me from afar. She probably blamed herself for her mother's death. What was going on in that little head of hers? I placed my hand on her forehead. The warmth of her blush had already spread down to her neck. Forget the rumors, I said firmly. Those people are just blind. As long as I'm here, I won't let you wear that ribbon again. You are my future princess. If anyone dares to mock you, I'll make sure they regret it. I looked at her with total seriousness. I felt like a protagonist from one of those over-the-top romance novels. It was a bit cringy when I thought about it, but I meant every word. Leanne's eyes filled with tears. She couldn't hold back her emotions any longer and threw her arms around me. "Silly girl," I whispered, laughing softly as I wrapped my arms around her slender waist. Nearby, Jinxiu let out a small burp and covered her mouth. She hadn't eaten anything, but watching us, she felt strangely full. In the main hall, old General Yi Tiance was looking at Shun Tingfeng with a forced smile. "The fifth prince is a rare guest indeed. I came specifically to congratulate the Duke," Shun Tingfeng said. He had just finished a lavish meal at a tavern and happened to be wandering nearby. He figured he'd drop in to see if he could score more free food. He wasn't actually afraid of the misfortune rumors. If Lian were truly a curse, the Yi family wouldn't have been fine for the last decade, and the emperor would never have allowed her into the royal family. Only fools believe those stories. "I thank the prince for his kindness," Yi Tiance said, bowing slightly. After the formalities, the two just stood there, staring at each other. The silence grew awkward. Yi Tiance's brow twitched. It was almost dinner time. Why wasn't this kid leaving? The Jinghua mansion didn't have a plate for him. Shin Tengfeng's smile was starting to freeze in the wind. He was a prince, for heaven's sake. He came to offer congratulations, and the Duke wasn't even going to offer him a meal? "Fifth brother? What a coincidence," I said, walking in with Lian. "Sixth brother." Shin Tengfeng looked startled. He cursed under his breath. Why was I everywhere? He started to say something, but then his eyes locked onto the two women behind me. He froze. His jaw practically hit the floor. Asterisk, holy crap. A fairy. "Greetings, fifth prince," Lian said, bowing gracefully alongside Jinxiu. Her pale blue eyes shimmered like clear water in the sunset. "Sixth brother, who is this?" Shin Tingfeng stammered. I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. "This is my future wife, Yi Lian." Lian lowered her head shyly. Shin Tingfeng looked like he had been struck by lightning. Now he understood why I had begged the emperor for this marriage in front of the entire court. Compared to her, the fair beauties of the city looked like common stones. He couldn't believe the Yi family had been hiding a literal goddess in their house all these years. He felt a sharp pang of jealousy. "Sixth brother, you have incredible luck," he managed to say, giving me a thumbs up. He probably didn't realize that if he had tried to move on her first, he would have been closer to death than he'd ever been in his life. "Thank you for the blessing, fifth brother," I said. I knew that by tomorrow, a new rumor would sweep through the city. In any era, beauty mattered. If you were beautiful enough, even a sin became a charm. I was going to drown out the old whispers. When people spoke of Yi Lian, they wouldn't think of curses. They would think of grace and luck. Anyway, sixth brother, Duke Yi, Miss Yi, I just remembered I have things to do. "I'll be going now," Shin Tingfeng said. He felt like an outsider. He was just the guy looking for a free meal while we were a family. His mood had hit rock bottom twice today because of me. In his mind, I was the real omen of misfortune. We saw him out. Yi Tiance stood with his hands on his hips, watching him leave. That's a rare sight. In all these years, he's only been here 3 times. "Fifth brother is a busy man," I chuckled. "Prince of Chu," the old general said, "the banquet is ready. Stay and have a few drinks." "I'd be honored, General." "Haha, excellent. After go to the cellar. Get the good stuff from the very back. Tonight, the prince and I drink until we drop." The next morning, the sun rose over the city. I stretched as I walked back into the Chu mansion. My head was pounding. Old General Yi had really put me through the ringer last night, and then I'd had to suffer through the early morning court session. I felt exactly like a high schooler who had pulled an all-nighter and then had to sit through first-period math. I had tried to nap in a corner during the meeting, but the officials wouldn't stop screaming. They were arguing, crying about being poor, and begging for money. The royal court was louder than a wet market. My brother, the crown prince, kept trying to quiet them down, but it only worked for a few minutes at a time. I envied my younger brothers who weren't 15 yet. They didn't have to attend these meetings. Then there was Shun Tingfeng, the king of slackers, who somehow always found a way to skip. "Mindu," I said to my attendant, "I'm going to sleep. Wake me at noon." Mindu pulled a slip of paper from his sleeve. "Your Highness, according to the schedule, you are required to go to the academy at 4 o'clock today for your studies." I froze. The academy? The Tianwu Academy. It was the royal school for princes and children of high-ranking officials. The head teacher there was no ordinary scholar. He was Zhou Xiu, the top disciple of the literary saint. Even the crown prince had to bow and call him teacher. My peaceful morning was officially over. Ever since my fifth brother took the throne, the great Qin dynasty had been swept up in a new era of martial spirit. He believed a man should be able to stabilize a nation with literature, but defend it with the sword. Because of this, he placed an incredible amount of weight on education. He built academies everywhere and established a rigorous examination system to scout for talent. Basically a version of the ancient civil service exams I knew from my old life. But for us princes and princesses, the rules were even harsher. It didn't matter if you held a government position or a noble title. You weren't excused from the academy until you officially graduated. "I'm not going," I said, my answer short and final. Mendu looked worried. "Your Highness, if you don't go, how will we explain it to His Majesty? The academy keeps a strict register. They know exactly who shows up and who doesn't. At the end of the day, that list goes straight to the palace for the emperor to review." I waved him off, completely unbothered. At worst, I'll just go see him tonight. Besides, what's the point of learning that stuffy literature? If I really wanted to impress people, I could just plagiarize a few famous lines from the 4 books and 5 classics. I'd be hailed as a literary saint on the spot. I had better things to do with my time, like heading back to the Jinghua mansion to hold Lian's hand. Mendu gave me a thumbs up. "Your Highness, you're bold. Go get me something light for lunch," I ordered. "Yes, Your Highness. I'll arrange it immediately." Over at the Tianwu Academy, the atmosphere was much more tense. Zhou Xiu, the top disciple of the literary saint, stood in his white scholar's robes, holding the roll call. He called out my name again. "Shenyan." The classroom went silent. My fifth brother, Shun Tingfeng, was sitting there, his eyes wide with admiration. Sixth brother is a legend, he thought. He actually dared to skip the 7th pavilion session. Even a slacker like Tingfeng didn't have the guts to pull that move. Sitting nearby, the fourth prince, Shun Jingyu, noticed Tingfeng's smirk. "Fifth brother, you look excited. Did you discover something interesting?" Tingfeng rubbed his thumb and forefinger together, the universal sign for cash. "Fourth brother, I found a massive secret, but it depends on how sincere you are." Jingyu laughed, sliding a gold bracelet off his wrist. "I left the house in a hurry today and didn't bring any silver. Will this do?" Tingfeng grabbed the gold, bit it to make sure it was real, and beamed. "It'll do. It'll definitely do. Come closer." He leaned in and whispered into Jingyu's ear. Jingyu's eyebrows shot up. A fairy? A peerless beauty? The 7th prince, Shun Luanyan, was sitting behind them. He was still young, his face full of childish curiosity. He poked his head forward. "Brothers, what are you talking about?" Tingfeng didn't discriminate. He rubbed his fingers at the kid, too. Luanyan's face fell. "Fifth brother, you know I'm even poorer than you." Jingyu, feeling generous, took another gold bracelet off his other wrist and handed it over. Tingfeng's eyes immediately darted to Jingyu's ankles. He wondered if these guys got a massive pay raise the moment they were granted their titles, because they were loaded. "Don't look, that's all I've got," Jingyu said, laughing. Tingfeng took the gold and beckoned the youngest brother closer. A few seconds later, Luanyan's jaw hit the floor. "No way, fifth brother. Are you serious? I saw her with my own eyes yesterday." Tingfeng snapped. "Would I lie to you?" "Silence," Zhou Xiu barked. He closed the register and turned to a young page. "Go to the Chu mansion. Ask the prince why he isn't here today." When the page arrived at my gates, he practically shook in his boots. Mendu's hulking, scarred appearance was enough to terrify anyone. "The prince is feeling unwell today," Mendu said, clasping his hands. "Please relay that to the teacher." The page nodded frantically and sprinted away. Mendu sighed, feeling pretty proud of himself. If he wasn't around to handle these things, he figured my whole household would probably fall apart. By lunchtime at the academy, the rumor mill was in full swing. Tingfeng was running around like a man possessed, stopping anyone he could find. "I have a secret. You want in?" By the time he was done, his pockets were overflowing with gold and silver, and the news about Yi Lian had spread like wildfire. The ominous girl of the Yi family was no longer a monster. She was a hidden beauty. "Did you hear? The Yi girl is prettier than the 4 great beauties. I heard she's a literal fairy under a curse, forced to live in the mortal realm." The conversation shifted from fear to obsession. People were even debating if the 4 great beauties should now be the 5 great beauties. Naturally, some idiots decided they needed to see for themselves. A few brave, or stupid, souls tried to climb the walls of the Jingwa mansion, only to be beaten back by guards with clubs. Inside the mansion, old General Yi Tiance sat with a dark expression. He knew exactly who was responsible for this. That loudmouth, Shen Tingfeng. He didn't know whether to be happy or angry. He was glad people weren't calling his granddaughter a disaster anymore, but he was furious that his home was being treated like a tourist attraction. Luckily, I had warned him the night before. He had doubled the guards, so the intruders didn't stand a chance. Master, a servant named Ah Fu reported. The son of the Marquis of Luqing is at the gate with a visiting card. Tell them to get lost. Yi Tiance growled. The mansion is closed to visitors today. A moment later, Ah Fu ran back in. Master, what now? I said no visitors. It's the Prince of Chu's men, Ah Fu whispered. Yi Tiance blinked. Let them in. Shanghai stepped into the hall and bowed. General, the prince heard the mansion was being harassed by unwanted guests. He sent me with 100 Xian guards to help. We are at your disposal. Yi Tiance looked out at the 100 elite soldiers dressed in silver and black armor, their long blades gleaming at their hips. A small smile finally touched his face. The prince is very thoughtful. Back at my mansion, I asked Mindu. Did Shanghai make it? Yes, Your Highness. He's at the Yi residence now. I nodded. Good. Let's wait and see how far this whirlpool spreads. Meanwhile, far to the west, the wind howled across the Tianmen Pass. This was the legendary first pass under heaven, a massive fortress built into the mountains. The walls were scarred by time and sand, but one mark stood out, a terrifying sword gash that ran from the top of the tower all the way to the ground. Legend said the sword saint, Pei Wen, had been blocked here years ago. The defending general had challenged him, asking how he would break the world's greatest pass. Pei Wen had left a single strike and walked away. For years, no one dared to repair the tower because the lingering sword intent was too powerful to approach. It had become a holy site for swordsmen everywhere. Up on the wall, a captain spat out a mouthful of sand. The wind is brutal today. His right eye was twitching uncontrollably. He had a bad feeling, like something terrible was about to happen. Out in the desert, a dark shadow flickered through the sandstorm. It moved with a sound like 1,000 people screaming, a wail that drowned out the wind itself. Suddenly, the figure stopped. The wind whipped his black robes against his thin frame. A voice like a dying crow rasped out into the void. Little mouse, you followed me all this way. Aren't you going to come out? The voice of the old man was hideous, a raspy struggle between a sob and a laugh. Suddenly, the sand in front of him began to bulge. A small mound formed, then burst open as a tiny, agile figure leaped out and landed perfectly on the ground. Bah, you old fossil, the girl snapped, dusting herself off. You've got some nerve. If I hadn't let my aura slip on purpose, do you really think you could have sensed me? I've been tailing you since you left the Night City. She pointed a finger at the man, who I knew as the withered North Elder. Her voice was high-pitched and fierce, like a kitten trying to roar. Her name was Zishu. The elder's face, already wrinkled like rotting tree bark, turned a shade paler. He was stunned. He had never heard of a concealment technique this perfect. This little girl was only in the mortal realm. Facing him should have been a suicide mission. Unless she wasn't alone. In the world of martial arts, levels meant everything. From the lowly unranked to the first class, then the mortal, the mysterious, the free, the heaven dance, and finally the legendary spirit realm. The elder was powerful, but he felt the air shift. For figures emerged from the swirling sandstorm, moving with haunting speed. They fanned out, surrounding the elder in a perfect execution square. Later, old man. Zishu stuck out her tongue, gave him a very modern, very rude gesture with her middle finger, and dove back into the sand like a fish into water. The elder's face crumpled into a mask of dread. These 4 newcomers had massive, suffocating auras. One of them felt even stronger than him. As the left protector of the demon sect, he was used to being hunted, but this felt different. This felt like the end. May I ask who you are? The elder asked, his voice dripping with forced respect. If I have offended you, I apologize. I am willing to offer a heaven snow burial flower and a top-tier demon sect manual to settle this. Silence. Only the howling wind answered him. Then, one of them moved. The figure leaped, and the phantom of a golden tiger roared into existence behind him. He came down like a predator descending a mountain, his strike heavy and righteous. The elder knew he couldn't block it. That energy was pure yang, the exact opposite of his dark cultivation. He twisted his body, narrowly dodging the blow. Boom. The foot hit the sand where he had stood, sending a shockwave that kicked up a 3-meter-high wall of grit. Before he could breathe, 3 arrows whistled through the dust, aiming straight for his skull. Wailing palm, the elder screamed. A purple, ghostly hand manifested, smashing the sand wave and swiping at the arrows. He managed to break 2, but the third grazed his cheek, tearing away a strip of skin. Black, foul blood splattered his face. He looked like a demon crawling out of hell. He scrambled back 10 meters, his black robes fluttering. A rain of spear shadows fell from the sky, exploding around him. Demon-subduing staff. A heavy wooden staff cracked the air, coming down toward his head. The elder cursed. A monk? Where did a bald-headed monk from the Tianmu temple come from? He gathered his ghostly energy and caught the staff with his bare palm. For a second, they were locked. The elder's eyes turned murderous. He prepared another wailing palm with his free hand, but the man with the tiger aura was already there. A golden fist slammed into the elder's chest. The golden tiger roared. The ghostly energy shattered. The elder spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. While he was midair, another arrow tore through his hand. He rolled across the sand and struggled to his feet. But instead of weakening, his aura began to explode. He was desperate. Stop, the man named Who said, waving the others back. He took a hidden dragon pill. He'll be in a berserk state for the next 15 minutes. Fall back. A man in a black hat named Wu Ma didn't say a word. He just drew his bow, channeling every drop of his energy into a single arrow. I'll kill you. I'll kill all of you. The elder shrieked, his eyes bulging and bloodshot. The arrow flew. It was a red streak that pierced the elder's forehead without resistance. Boom. The energy exploded. Pieces of black cloth drifted through the air like burnt paper. Is he dead? Wei Yang asked, lowering his spear. Who frowned. His eyes sharpened. No, it's the golden cicada shedding. He's running. Chase him. Thousands of meters away, a pale, skinless-looking figure was sprinting naked across the desert. It was the elder, having sacrificed his outer layer to escape. He just had to make it back to the Night City. If he survived, he promised himself he'd tear those people apart. He'd turn that little girl's skull into a wine cup. Through the haze of the storm, he saw a figure walking toward him. Hope flared in his chest. Was it a reinforcement from the city? He ran harder. But as he got closer, he saw a bronze mask. A mask of a long-lived beast. The world seemed to slow down. The masked man walked past him without a word. Click. The sound of a blade being sheathed echoed in the wind. The masked man kept walking toward the Tianmen Pass. Behind him, the elder stopped. Black blood dripped onto the sand. His last thought was a realization of the power he had just encountered, half-step spirit realm. The elder's body split perfectly in two, rolling down a sand dune until the desert buried him forever. Back in the capital, at the Crown Prince's manor, the atmosphere was much calmer. Your Highness, a eunuch reported, the Prince of Chu has moved 100 elite guards to the Jinghua mansion. My brother, the Crown Prince Shen Mukin, lay on his couch, his long black hair spilling over his silk robes. He looked bored. My sixth brother certainly is protective of his sweetheart, isn't he? He yawned. Our fifth brother visited the Yi mansion yesterday. I assumed the rumors about Yi Lian started with him. You are wise, Highness. Mukin chuckled. It wasn't wisdom. He just knew how his brothers operated. Keep a close eye on the Chu mansion. With most of his guards gone, someone is going to get restless tonight. The eunuch gasped. You mean, someone will attack a prince in the city? No one is that stupid, Mukin said, shaking his head. But they won't let him sleep peacefully. My brother has been away for 5 years. He came back with too many secrets, too many chips on the table. People are scared. They want to see what he's actually holding. Don't you want to know, Highness? I do. but I'm not in a hurry. Someone else will do the dirty work and bring me the answers. Mukin dismissed the eunuch, then looked at his personal attendant. Achan, I'm tired. Let's rest. As the night deepened, I sat in my own study, staring at a chessboard. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I lost again, I said, looking at Fuxing. Fuxing kept his eyes half closed and nodded slightly. You did, Your Highness. The whirlpool was spinning, and just as I expected, it had come back for me. Fuxing looked up at the darkening sky, his eyes sharp. Your Highness, do you need me to step in? No need, I said with a light chuckle. I've already made the arrangements. To be precise, someone else is going to help us tonight. I stretched my arms. Let's eat first. I'll probably have to take a trip to the palace later. Fuxing looked curious. Is it because of the academy? I hope so, I replied. After dinner, I stood in the courtyard and performed a full set of radio gymnastics. It was a strange sight for this world, but it helped me stretch my muscles and clear my head. They're here, Mindu shouted as he ran toward me, his voice urgent. I didn't even look up. They're here? Where's my horse? The servants have already brought it to the main gate, he panted. I nodded and gave him one last look. Follow the plan. Everything must be exact. And if they don't show up? Mindu asked. Then wait for me to come back and go to sleep. Mindu gave me a dark, knowing grin. At the main gate, a group of riders waited. They wore red war robes and silver dragon scale armor, with heavy blades at their waists. These were the Imperial Guards. They dismounted the moment they saw me and bowed low. Prince of Chu, His Majesty orders you to enter the palace immediately. There is no time to lose. I understand, I said. I climbed onto my horse and kicked its sides. Let's go. I took off like a shot, leaving a trail of dust. The guards scrambled to their horses and raced after me. The manor wasn't far from the palace, and soon, our horses' hooves were clattering against the stones of the inner court. An old eunuch was waiting for me at the door of the imperial study. It was Zhao Hai, the head eunuch. Eunuch Zhao, I said, pulling my horse to a stop. This old servant greets the Prince of Chu, he said with a respectful bow. I leaned in close and whispered, How is my father's mood today? Zhao Hai looked nervous. I wouldn't dare say, Your Highness. Come on, Eunuch Zhao. Just a nod for happy, a shake for sad. I pulled out a 500-tael banknote and stuffed it into his sleeve. Your Highness, I can't. It's just a little tea money, I insisted. As we were back and forth, my father's voice boomed from inside the study. Old Sixth. I'm here, I shouted. I hurried inside and performed a formal bow. Zhao Hai quietly tucked the money away and followed me in. My father, Emperor Shen Wudi, was buried behind a mountain of scrolls on his desk. He didn't look up. Why didn't you go to the academy today? I didn't want to go, I answered honestly. He finally put down his scroll, his expression shifting. Why? I just didn't feel like it. Is Master Zhou a bad teacher? He's excellent, I said. I just didn't want to go. I'm fining you 1 month's salary, he snapped. Any complaints? My heart squeezed, but I kept my face neutral. I wouldn't dare. I knew it. The old man was looking for any excuse to bleed me dry. I heard your Bayan Chamber of Commerce has been very busy with foreign traders lately, he said casually. The horse market is about to open, father. I wanted to make sure we secured enough breeding stock and grain transport horses this year. I told the merchants to negotiate the prices early. I felt a pang of pain in my chest just talking about it. I had built the Bayan Chamber of Commerce from nothing. My father had invested in it by simply providing his face and protection. For that, he took 50% of the profits without lifting a finger. On top of that, he constantly found ways to tax my half of the share. Currently, 60% of the Empire's warhorses came from my company. You've put in effort, he said. It is my duty, I replied, my mouth twitching. Father, I have a request. Speak. I would like you to pick an auspicious day for my wedding. A small smile finally appeared on his face. Impatience? Or are the rumors bothering you? The rumors are many. I'm afraid of unexpected changes. The last time I saw Lian, she was just a baby in her mother's arms, my father mused. Now she's a grown woman. Time flies. I stayed silent. I remembered that Lian's father, Yi Fun, had been my father's personal bodyguard back when he was still the crown prince. Father, I said, I have something I don't understand. What is it? You don't seem to care about the rumors at all. But I care, he interrupted. But I trust you. I know you won't let Lian suffer. He was testing me. I won't fail you, I said firmly. Good. Now, I have a scroll here for you to look at. If your answer isn't good enough, I'm docking another month of your salary. Later that night, I walked out of the palace gates. Inside the study, Zhao Hai stood beside the emperor. Zhao Hai, what do you think of old Sixth? My father asked. Zhao Hai bowed his head. If I may be so bold, the Prince of Chu has been brilliant since childhood. He is talented, well-read, and skilled in both letters and martial arts. He carries your shadow in his brow, Majesty. He is a blessing to the empire. If I were to name an heir, do you think he is suitable? Zhao Hai turned pale and dropped to his knees. This servant is terrified to speak on such matters. My father sighed. Everything he does, his purpose is always too strong. Outside, the night sky over Tianwu City was suddenly torn apart. Whiz, pop, bang. Streaks of light shot into the air, exploding into 1,000 colors. At the Jinghua mansion, Yi Lian looked up. Her long, snow-white neck was exposed as she stared at the sky, her eyelashes trembling. So beautiful, she whispered. At the marquee of Wuqing's manor, another young woman stood in her courtyard, her eyes sparkling. What beautiful fireworks! On a quiet street, my carriage had stopped. My guard looked confused. Is there a festival today? Wait, that direction. That's the prince's manor. I leaned against the carriage and put a hand on his shoulder. This is a good spot. Let's stay here and enjoy the show. But your highness, the manor is. I waved him off. Don't worry. Just watch. Back at my manor, Mendu had finished lighting the last of the fireworks. He drew his blade and signaled the guards to retreat as a group of men in black swarmed over the walls. Are these the prince's elite? One of the intruders mocked, parrying a guard's strike. They fight worse than peasants. Shut up and search, the leader of the black-clad men barked. When the prince returned, he brought 2 large black boxes. Find them. The attackers pushed into the backyard. Mendu punched a man so hard he flew backward, then yelled, "Run!" The guards didn't hesitate. They turned and fled deeper into the manor. The intruders tried to give chase, but the sound of whistling air cut through the explosions of the fireworks. Asterisk thwip, thwip, thwip. Asterisk blood bloomed like flowers in the colorful light. In an instant, half of the 30 intruders were pinned to the ground by crossbow bolts. The leader spun around, his sword a blur as he knocked arrows out of the air. His pupils shrank. No, how are they here so fast? On the tiled roofs of the manor, dozens of masked figures had appeared out of nowhere. They held heavy Tanlang crossbows, their eyes cold behind their masks. The Wuwei division. The emperor's secret teeth. Attack! The commander, Song Qi, ordered. The Wuwei guards dropped their crossbows and drew their blades. They fell from the roofs like wolves into a sheepfold. The men in black, who were supposed to be top-tier experts, didn't stand a chance. It was a slaughter. The leader of the assassins gritted his teeth. If the Wuwei division had been just 15 minutes later, they would have found the boxes. Now, he was just trying to survive. He leaped into the air, trying to clear the perimeter wall. He was fast, but a shadow was faster. He felt a massive presence to his side and swung his sword in a blind reflex. Clang! A meteor hammer, glowing red from the reflection of the fireworks, smashed into his blade. The impact sent him spiraling back into the courtyard. Song Qi pulled the chain back, his eyes fixed on his prey. The trap was shut. Song Qi didn't give the leader a chance to breathe. He spun the meteor hammer with high-speed rotations, stepped forward, and used the momentum to smash the iron weight toward the man's skull. The leader raised his sword to block, but the impact was devastating. A massive chunk of the blade snapped off instantly. The force traveled up his arm, numbing his grip and forcing him to retreat several meters along the wall. The distance between them grew. Song Qi exhaled a sharp breath of inner energy, and the tiny sparks inside the meteor hammer caught the wind. A sudden wave of flame erupted, engulfing the assassin leader. With a heavy thud, Song Qi kicked the returning hammer back into the fire. "Get out!" the leader roared. 2 streaks of sword energy tore through the flames, forcing Song Qi back. The masked man leaped down from the wall, clutching his collapsed shoulder, and fled the manor in total disgrace. "Commander Song, Why aren't we chasing him? A subordinate asked, hopping onto the wall. Song Chi retracted his weapon, his expression cold. Lord Baihu is here. Did you leave any survivors? The subordinate gasped at the name. They were suicide squads, my lord. We couldn't keep them alive. Take the bodies and withdraw, Song Chi ordered. Wait a minute, I called out, my voice cutting through the air as I walked toward them with my guards. Is my manor a public park? You think you can just come and go as you please after causing all this damage? Does the Wu Wei division not plan on paying for the repairs? Song Chi jumped down and bowed. Greetings, Prince of Chu. Stop the formalities, I said, waving him off. Pay up, Mindu. Mindu, my massive 9-foot-tall guard, came running from the backyard. He was wiping away fake tears, putting on a performance worthy of an award. Your Highness, he wailed. Calculate the losses, I told him. Do it right in front of them, so they don't say I'm extorting them. Song Chi looked like he was about to explode. Your Highness, we came here on orders to protect you from assassins. We were helping you. You were drawn here by the fireworks, I countered. They looked pretty, but they were actually distress signals from your own division. You weren't here for me. You were here for your own mission. Mindu started his tally. Your Highness, these green roof tiles were specially ordered from Gusu. They cost 100 silver coins each, and at least 100 are broken. And these floor tiles? Song Chi's face twitched. He knew this manor used to belong to a former prime minister and was renovated using the emperor's funds. I was essentially charging him for the emperor's property. Prince of Chu, it's been a long time. You're still as annoying as ever. A cold, crisp voice drifted down from above. A woman descended from the sky like a winter spirit. She wore a tight white robe that highlighted her graceful figure. Her hair was as white as snow, her skin like frost, and a single beauty mark sat at the corner of her eye. She was stunning. Lord Baihu. Song Chi and the guards immediately dropped to one knee. Baihu, one of the 4 heads of the Wu Wei division, folded her white fan. The man you're looking for is in the alley outside the manor. He still has 1 breath left in him. Take your people and leave. Yes, Lord Baihu. As the guards cleared out, the manor fell silent. The night wind blew softly. You little troublemaker, she said, her voice turning slightly resentful. You've been back so long, and you didn't even come to see me? Mindu and the other guards gasped. They looked at each other, eyes wide. What was the relationship between their prince and the legendary Baihu? We'll talk in the study, I said, my face darkening. Once inside, Baihu couldn't help teasing me. 5 years away, did you miss me? Stop, I said, holding up a hand. I have no interest in older women. Just pay for the damage your men did to my house. I held out my hand expectantly. Her eyebrows shot up. Who are you calling an old woman? You're 12 years older than me, I reminded her. You're in your 30s. If that's not an old woman, what is? I am your aunt, she snapped. Don't you know how to respect your elders? And I am a prince, I retorted. I've never heard you call me your highness once in my life. She sighed, her expression softening. I heard you're marrying Yi Lian. I am. And since I'm getting married, when are you going to find a good man and settle down? Would you really want me to marry someone else? She asked playfully. Of course, I said. I'd make a fortune on the wedding gifts. You brat. I should teach you a lesson on behalf of your mother. If anyone had seen us, their jaws would have hit the floor. A high-ranking official of the Wu Wei division and a prince were bickering like children. Eventually, we both got tired. Baihu sat down and looked at me seriously. I didn't think you'd actually come back, she whispered. Are you really ready to join this cold struggle for power? If I didn't come back, some things would never be resolved, I replied. She slammed her fan onto the desk and stood up. I may be one of the 4 heads of the division, but remember, I am your aunt. Your mother entrusted you to me. I'll be stationed in Tianwu City until the new year. If anything happens, come to me. If a prince is seen entering and leaving the Wu Wei division, the news will reach the court in minutes, I said, rubbing my temples. Do you want me to have more trouble? She snorted. Trouble? Who would dare trouble me? Nobody dares trouble you, but they'll certainly come for me. I rolled my eyes. The Wu Wei division was a sword held by the emperor over the martial world. Anyone who touched it was playing with fire. I have business to attend to, she said, leaving the fan on my desk. Take this. Seeing this fan is the same as seeing me. With a light hum, she vanished into thin air. I blinked. The old woman had gotten significantly stronger. Fuxing, I called out. If you fought her, what are your odds? Fuxing stepped out of the shadows. 50-50, Your Highness. 50%? That's enough. I smiled and opened the fan. It was a beautiful painting of a white tiger coming down a mountain, radiating a fierce, killing intent. This power struggle wasn't just about killing a few people or replacing an emperor. It was about the centuries-old families and noble houses, the blood-sucking spiders that lived off the great Qin dynasty. Every time the dragon moved, they bit deeper. If one dragon fell, they'd just wait for the next one to feed them. Mindu, I shouted. Here, Your Highness, he shouted, running back in. Casualties? Just a few light injuries, he reported. Some rooms were tossed, but the servants are cleaning it up. Reward everyone. Double the pay for those who were hurt. The next morning, I woke up late. The attack on the manor gave me the perfect excuse to skip the morning court session. The old man, the emperor, couldn't complain. In fact, he'd probably have to send me some sympathy gifts. Where are you going so early, Your Highness? A guard asked. The Jinghua mansion. I'll prepare the carriage. No need, I said. I'll walk. And don't follow me. I arrived at the Yi family estate, but it seemed the morning court session was running late today. Old General Yi Tiance hadn't returned yet, but when Yi Lian heard I was there, she didn't wait for her grandfather. I saw the surprise and joy in Yi Lian's eyes when she saw me. She had been waiting for her grandfather, but I showed up instead. Logically, we both should have returned from the morning court session together. She looked at me, confused, probably wondering what had happened to the old general. I told a small lie. I said I had some urgent business to attend to, which was why I skipped the court session, and that I was just stopping by on my way back. I couldn't tell this poor girl that my manor had been swarmed by assassins last night. If she knew, she wouldn't be able to eat or sleep for days out of worry. Lian, the weather is beautiful today, I said, offering a smile. Why don't you come out for a walk with me? I didn't want her cooped up in the mansion all day. Besides, there had been too many suspicious characters lurking around the Jinghua mansion walls lately, trying to spy on her. She needed to clear her head. Lian's eyes sparkled for a moment, but then they dimmed. She fidgeted with her hands, looking uncertain and silent. If you don't answer, I'll take that as a yes. I laughed, gently taking her small hand in mine. Wait a moment, Your Highness, she stammered, her face flushing with shyness. Lian needs to prepare. A few minutes later, she reappeared wearing a white silk veil that draped over her head. It gave her a soft, hazy beauty. I didn't mind. The political storm hadn't passed yet, and those mystical eyes of hers were far too eye-catching for the public streets. Her maids, Jinxiu and Jinlian, were beaming. They rarely got the chance to leave the estate, so they were happy to tag along. Shanghai was already there, so I had him bring 2 soldiers to follow us. As we slipped out through the back gate, old General Yi Tiance finally returned home. He had spent the morning in a heated court session. The emperor was furious about the attack on my manor and had ordered a massive investigation. Tianwu City was about to be turned upside down. When the old man heard I had kidnapped his granddaughter for a stroll, he just gave a helpless, amused smile. He had tried to take her out many times, but she was stubborn and always refused. It seemed only I could get her out of the house. Lian and I walked side by side in the lead. Shanghai and the maid stayed about 10 meters behind us, giving us some space. To get to the North Market, we had to cross the South Market. This was the district for the wealthy and powerful. The streets were lined with high-end shops selling silks, jade, and fine wine. Unlike the crowded North Market, it was quiet here. The sun was high, but the streets were nearly empty. Ordinary citizens didn't dare walk here. You never knew if you'd accidentally bump into a high-ranking official. Lian stopped suddenly in front of a fabric shop, staring at the fine silks on display. I could see her little head tilting as she imagined me wearing a robe made from those fabrics. What is it? Want to take a look? I asked softly. She nodded, her ears turning a deep shade of red as she looked at me. A shop assistant rushed out, his eyes sharp. Working in this neighborhood, you had to be a master at reading people. Even with the veil, he could tell we were nobility just by our clothes and posture. He started flattering us immediately. Lian carefully chose a piece of top-tier silk and 2 pieces of brocade. How much? I asked. As Lian reached for her small silver pouch, I already had a banknote in my hand. Pack it up and send it directly to the Jingwa mansion. The assistant froze. The Jingwa mansion? He looked at the veiled girl and then at me. His brain worked fast. The daughter of the North General and the Prince of Chu. Please, walk slowly, Your Highness. My lady, he called out as we left. He was shaking with excitement, ready to go brag to his neighbor about his royal customers. But as he stepped toward the door, he felt something hard press against his stomach. Shanghai was standing there, his hand on his sword hilt, eyes cold as ice. Watch your mouth, Shanghai hissed. The assistant swallowed hard, breaking into a cold sweat. I promise. My mouth is the tightest in the village. We kept walking. Even though the South Market was quiet, Lian was fascinated by everything. Her eyes darted around behind the veil. As we approached the North Market, the atmosphere changed. The noise grew louder, and the crowds thickened. This was the heart of the city for commoners. In our fine silk robes, we stood out like sore thumbs. People instinctively moved out of our way, creating a small, empty bubble around us. It felt like driving a luxury car through a traffic jam. Everyone gives you space because they're afraid of the bill if they scratch you. Next time, we should wear something more low profile, I sighed. Lian was getting nervous with so many people around. She reached out to grab my sleeve, but hesitated and pulled back. I saw her little movements. If this weren't such a conservative society, I would have just grabbed her hand right then and there. Don't be nervous, I whispered. I'm here. I intentionally moved my sleeve closer to her. Then, I spotted a vendor. Candied Haws, I shouted. Lian jumped slightly at my sudden outburst. The vendor ran over, his eyes lighting up at the sight of a wealthy customer. I'll take 2, I said, holding up 2 fingers. Yes, sir. That will be 2 copper coins. The vendor looked nervous. Often, nobles would just take things without paying, and a poor man like him could do nothing but curse under his breath later. My smile twitched. I felt my pockets. Banknotes, silver ingots, but not a single copper coin. Do you have change for a 10-tael note? I asked. The vendor's face soured. He didn't even make 10 taels in a year. He thought I was trying to stiff him. Lian gently tugged my sleeve. She pulled 2 coppers from her pouch and handed them over. I took them, feeling a bit embarrassed, and paid the man. He looked at Lian with pure gratitude. As we walked away, the maids Jinxiu and Jinlian reached the vendor. We want 5 sticks, Jinlian said excitedly. The vendor was happy until he saw Shanghai and the soldiers behind them. Their armor and killing intent made his knees go weak. He almost hit the ground right there. Why are you guys walking so fast? Jinlian called out to Shanghai, but the guards didn't stop, keeping their eyes fixed on me and Lian as we moved through the crowd. Stupid Lian, Jinxiu said, tapping Jinlian's forehead with her finger. He's the prince's personal guard. He has his duties. Hurry up and buy the sweets so we can catch up. The vendor overheard them, and his eyelids jumped. That young man, who looked like a celestial being descended to earth, was a prince? I had just stood that close to royalty? My goodness. A little further down the street, Lian was facing the biggest crisis of our outing. The white veil hanging from her hat was a major obstacle. If she wasn't careful, the syrup from the candied haws would stain the silk. But if she lifted it, people would see her eyes. She stood there, frozen in conflict. The bright red, mouth-watering fruit was right in front of her, but she couldn't figure out how to eat it. Was she supposed to pick it off with her fingers? Suddenly, her hand felt light. I had snatched the stick away. Now you see how much trouble it is to bring you out, I teased with a light laugh. I circulated my inner energy, focusing it at my fingertips. With a subtle flick, a single sugar-coated hawthorn berry detached from the bamboo skewer, hovering slightly in the air before I caught it. Come on, I'll feed you. I lifted a corner of her white veil and held the berry out. Your Highness, she murmured, her voice trembling. We did this when we were kids. Don't tell me you're shy now. I joked. Back then, she used to feed me fruit, and I'd spend my time peeling nuts for her. Lian's face turned bright red, her heart racing with embarrassment, but she obediently opened her small mouth. She took a tiny, gentle bite. Watching her lips move made my heart itch. I really wondered how long the old general was going to take to pick an auspicious date for our wedding. As we walked, Lian pulled out her small silver pouch. She spotted a beggar woman and her son sitting by the road, and moved to drop a few pieces of silver into their broken bowl. Clap. I reached out and grabbed her wrist. Your Highness. Leanne looked at me, confused. Silly girl, I said softly. Your kindness will end up killing them. I glanced coldly toward the alley behind the mother and son. Several scrawny male beggars were lurking there, watching her. Seeing my posture and realizing I wasn't someone to mess with, they slunk back into the shadows. Clink. I dropped a few copper coins into the bowl instead. Go buy something to eat, I told the woman. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. The mother and son knelt, bowing their heads in gratitude. I don't understand, Leanne said, shaking her head as we walked away. A few taels of silver is nothing to us, but it could have given them a good life for a long time. Why only give coppers? A few coppers will keep them fed for today, I explained. A few taels of silver would have made them targets. A normal person can earn a few coppers with hard work, but several taels? That's months, even half a year of income for a common family. It's enough to make people turn to murder out of greed. Leanne lowered her eyes. She was smart. It didn't take her long to grasp the dark logic behind my words. A shadow of sorrow crossed her face. I understand now. Thank you for the lesson. I sighed internally. She was brilliant, but too kind. Excessive kindness in this world only invites greater evil. I didn't want her to become a monster, but I didn't want her to be a victim either. Bringing her out to see the world, to see that it wasn't just black and white, was the right move. After another 30 paces, Leanne stopped at a stall selling hairpins. She picked up a beautifully carved wooden pin, examining it closely. Miss, come look. The pins here are so pretty, a voice chirped nearby. Chiyun, slow down, another voice replied. I stiffened, wondering why that name sounded so familiar. Chiyun. Why did that name sound so familiar? Then it hit me. Chiyun was the name of the personal maid of Gu Ruoi, the original female lead of this story. In the original plot, Gu Ruoi's mother came from the Zhun family, wealthy landowners in Luozhou. Years ago, during a massive famine and a peasant uprising, a general named Gu Qing was sent to suppress the rebellion. He fell in love with the Zhun family's daughter, but duty called him away to fight the northern barbarians. By the time he returned, the Zhun family had vanished. He searched for 17 years, only to find a grave. But he found his daughter, Gu Ruoi. I turned my head instinctively. There she was. She was a lively girl, her skin as pale as snow and her hair like a black waterfall. Her eyes were like shimmering pools, her beauty soft and delicate. She was every bit the heroine. Her looks could actually rival Leanne's. No wonder all the male leads in the book threw themselves at her. I quietly looked away. In the original story, I was supposed to meet her 7 days after she returned to the city, saving her from a situation at the 1,000 Gold Pavilion. But I had already changed the plot so much. I had snatched up the treasures and opportunities meant for the original protagonists. The guidebook in my head was expired. I might as well throw it in the trash. Even though it was just a glance, Gu Ruoi seemed struck by my appearance. I could see the startled look in her eyes. Ma'am, how much for this wooden pin? Leanne asked the old woman running the stall. 3 coppers, the old woman said, then hesitated. Actually, 2 is fine. It's a bit expensive. The pin was carved well, but it was just plain wood. No jewels, no gold. Here you go, Leanne said, placing 3 coppers into the woman's hand. Thank you, young lady. Thank you. Are these wooden combs for sale too? Leanne asked, reaching for a row of small, delicate combs. At the exact same moment, another hand reached for the same comb. I rolled my eyes. Of course, this was exactly the kind of cliché drama the original author loved. Please, after you, Leanne said, withdrawing her hand. She looked up and blinked, surprised by Gu Ruoi's beauty. Even through the veil, Gu Ruoi could feel Leanne's elegant, cold aura. She looked at me, then back at Leanne. A strange sense of rivalry or unease seemed to flash in her eyes. No, sister, please, Gu Ruoi replied with a polite bow. Even though her family had fallen on hard times, her etiquette was perfect. Her maid, Chiyun, stood there looking confused, wondering why everyone had suddenly stopped talking. Ma'am, what about this one? I asked, breaking the awkward silence. I picked up a comb that felt different. The old woman's eyes cleared for a moment. Sir, that one is made of ox horn. It's more expensive. It costs 1 tael of silver. I looked at the comb. The texture was like jade. The craftsmanship was incredible. The person who made this had poured their soul into it. My third son carved that, the old woman said, her face glowing with pride. I'll take it. I pulled out a few pieces of silver and placed them in her hand. Sir, you gave me far too much, the old woman stammered, looking at the silver in her palm. It's not too much, I replied firmly. It's worth every bit of that price. Thank you, young master. Thank you. I turned to Leanne. Do you like it? I asked, placing the oxhorn comb into her small hands. Her eyes filled with a mix of joy and bashfulness. She nodded her head so vigorously I thought her hairpins might fall off. I love it, she whispered. In almost every world, whether in the past or this one, giving a comb carried a heavy meaning. It was a private vow, a promise to grow old together until your hair turned white. No wonder the silly girl was so moved. Standing to the side, Guroi watched us. Her fingers gripped the corner of her sleeve tightly. For some reason, her heart felt strangely empty, yet her stomach felt heavy with a sensation she couldn't name. Let's go, I said with a gentle smile. I didn't give Guroi a second glance. Leanne gave her a polite, graceful nod of farewell, and then we walked away from the stall together. Miss? Miss? Chiyun waved her hand in front of Guruai's face, snapping her out of her daze. The young master is already gone. Oh, Guruai murmured, her gaze dropping. She looked genuinely dejected. From start to finish, it felt like that man had only looked at her once. Miss, did you fall for him? Chiyun asked with a mischievous grin. I did not. Guruai's face flushed a deep crimson. Her shy, lovely expression made every man walking past turn their heads to stare. You wicked girl, making fun of me again. You need to be punished. Ouch. Miss, be gentle. You're going to bruise my cheeks. As they played, Shanghai walked past the stall and frowned. He recognized Guruai as the daughter of the Marquis of Wuching. I had told him to keep an eye on her a few days ago. She was beautiful, certainly, but he didn't see anything particularly special about her. His subordinates, Jin Xiu and Jin Lian, were staring at her with wide eyes, though. Aside from their own mistress, Lian, they had never seen a woman with such peerless beauty. They were practically green with envy. Further up the street, I noticed Lian looking like she wanted to say something, but was holding back. I couldn't help but chuckle. What is it? Are you still thinking about that girl back there? She remained quiet, her little head clearly spinning with overthought. Yes, Lian admitted softly. That was the first time I've ever seen such a beautiful girl. She had such a noble aura. She must be a lady from a great family. Her small hands nervously picked at her clothes. She rarely left the mansion, but she often heard rumors about the great beauties of Tianwu City. Her grandfather always told her she was 1,000 times more beautiful than any of them, but she knew he was just trying to comfort her. Because of her pale blue eyes, she carried a deep-seated insecurity that she couldn't shake off. Seeing Guruai had amplified that feeling. She couldn't help but wonder, if I had met Guruai first, would I have ever chosen someone like her? Someone seen as an omen of bad luck? Are you sure that was the first time you saw someone that beautiful? I asked, suddenly grabbing her hand. Lian lowered her head quickly. I wouldn't dare lie to you, Your Highness. You silly girl, I said, my heart aching for her. Do you never look in a mirror? The rumors and the way society treated her had left deep scars on her heart. I needed to fix that. Lian, I said, catching her off guard. You are the most beautiful person I have ever seen. Those eyes are the most beautiful eyes I have ever encountered. Whether in the past or now, you are my future princess. I won't allow you to belittle yourself. I spoke with a tone of command, but my actions were tender. I reached under her white veil and gently flicked the tip of her delicate nose. She tried to shy away, but I held her hand firm, trapping her in place. She was so embarrassed, she looked like she wanted to bury her face in her chest. Your Highness, she protested piteously. I'm not silly. By the time we finished wandering, it was past noon. I decided to take her to a restaurant I owned to have some lunch. I wasn't worried about her getting tired. People often underestimated her. Lian wasn't just a girl with special eyes. She was a genuine martial arts expert in the Huaxian realm. In the original plot of this world, she eventually became a powerful female general who could break through an army of tens of thousands. We sat in a private room while Hai and the guards ate in the room next door. Leanne ate with extreme grace, taking tiny, ladle-like bites. It was almost frustrating to watch. Since we had plenty of time, I didn't rush her. I spent the meal expertly peeling crabs for her. "Your Highness, I'm full," she whispered, looking at the pile of food I'd put on her plate. She looked like a child who was afraid she'd done something wrong. "Really full?" I asked, my hands pausing. "Yes, really, truly." She sounded urgent, terrified I wouldn't believe her. "All right then, I'm still hungry." I reached over and pulled her plate toward me. In this world, resources weren't as abundant as back on Earth. Even with the high-yield crops I'd introduced from overseas, a natural disaster could still lead to famine. I hated waste. "Your Highness, don't. It's dirty." Leanne reached out to stop me. She couldn't wrap her head around a prince eating her leftovers. I caught her fluttering hand and smiled warmly. "What's dirty about it? Do you think I'd be disgusted by your saliva?" "No. It's just, you are a prince. How could you? How could you?" Her face started to burn. She didn't know which question to answer first. "How could I what?" Before she could finish, I pulled her into my arms and leaned down. I kissed her. I had spent years thinking about her. I wasn't going to be satisfied with just holding hands and walking through the streets. Leanne's eyes went wide. Her body trembled, and she felt a sudden heat rising within her. Her hands instinctively pressed against my chest, and eventually, her eyes fluttered shut as she melted into the sensation. After a long moment, I finally let her go. I didn't care about the social taboos or the proper way for a man and woman to behave. I kissed her, and after we were married, I planned to do it every single day. Leanne looked dazed, her lips glistening, her breath coming in short, fragrant gasps. Her face was so red it looked like it might bleed. She stayed slumped in my arms, completely powerless. "You silly girl," I teased. "You were the one who told me to eat yours." "Your Highness, I didn't mean it like that." She buried her face in my shoulder. I hadn't even let her finish her sentence before I pounced. "If someone saw, the censors would report you to the Emperor." She wasn't worried about her own reputation. She was worried about mine. "Do you dislike me?" I asked softly. "I wouldn't dare," she whispered. "How could I not know your heart?" "Leanne, I missed you so much. I'm sorry I made you wait." "I missed you too," she said, rubbing her head against me. "As long as I'm in your heart, I'm happy." I hugged her tighter, my heart breaking at how easily she was satisfied. Crash. The sound of furniture breaking and shouting drifted up from downstairs, ruining the moment. My anger spiked instantly. Someone was causing trouble in my restaurant. But more importantly, they had interrupted the first real intimate moment I'd had with my girl. "Sit here and be good," I said, patting her head gently. "I'm going to see what's going on." "Okay," she whispered. "Be careful, Your Highness," Leanne whispered, nodding obediently. I gave her a reassuring smile before I stood up. The moment I turned toward the door, my expression went cold. I stepped out into the hallway just as Hai and my other two guards emerged from the private room next door. "Your Highness," Hai greeted me, his voice low and ready. "Take control of the two men causing the scene," I ordered. My voice was like ice. "Yes, sir." I walked to the railing and looked down at the main hall of the restaurant. A man in expensive silk robes, his face pale with manufactured rage, was screaming at the top of his lungs. 20 taels for a single pot of wine. Do you think we're idiots?" he bellowed, slamming his fist on a table. The restaurant manager held up a menu, sighing patiently. "Sir, all our prices are clearly marked. As you can see, a pot of judgment wine is exactly 20 taels of silver." "This is a total scam," the man roared. He turned to the crowd gathering at the entrance. "Everyone, look. Zoatian Restaurant is a black-hearted shop. They're robbing people in broad daylight." His companion joined in, shouting toward the street to draw in passers-by. People in this era didn't have much entertainment, so a public brawl was better than a play. Within seconds, a massive crowd had gathered, whispering and pointing. I watched from above as the manager shook his head. I could almost hear his thoughts. Was this the business warfare I had once described to him? Instead of making yourself better, you just try to drag your rival through the mud. The manager had a good memory. He recognized the man in the silk robes. He was the brother-in-law of the manager of Dingfu Restaurant, located just one street over. These two were incredibly unlucky. Of all the days to pull a stunt like this, they chose the one day I was actually here. They were practically begging for death. The manager caught my eye for a split second. Then, Shanghai and the guards blurred into motion. They leaped down the stairs and kicked both men to the floor before they could even react. The silk-robed man hit the ground hard. He opened his mouth to curse, but Shanghai's boot met his jaw first. A spray of blood and a dozen teeth flew across the floor. "How many heads do you have to spare, bothering His Highness while he eats?" Shanghai asked, drawing his long blade with a terrifying metallic ring. The man's companion froze, a sword pressed against his throat. He didn't even dare to breathe. I slowly walked down the stairs. The moment I appeared, the crowd outside gasped. "What a handsome young master. Wait, isn't that Prince Chu?" "What? The prince is here." The manager hurried over and bowed deeply. "Your Highness." He quickly explained the situation, though I already knew the details. "Ding Fu Restaurant." I repeated the name slowly. "I remember now. Isn't that my fourth brother's property?" Ding Fu Restaurant belonged to Shun Jingyu, the Prince of Song. "Take these two to the capital prefecture," I said calmly. "And make sure you mention my name when you hand them over." The manager stiffened. I was essentially slapping the Prince of Song in the face publicly. "You know what to do next, right?" I asked him. I understand, the manager replied eagerly. He knew this scandal would hurt our reputation if left alone. His job now was public relations. He was going to spend a little money to ride this wave of heat and turn it into a massive advertisement for Zuaishan Restaurant. I raised an eyebrow, impressed. He was actually applying the modern marketing tactics I taught him. "Good. Go on then," I said. "Don't worry about the Prince of Song. I'll handle it." This whole farce was likely just a stupid idea from the Dingfu manager. It wasn't a direct attack from my brother yet, but it gave me the perfect excuse to meet Shun Jingyu outside the palace. With my backing, the manager went into overdrive. He announced that everyone currently dining would have their meals for free. He started handing out fruit to the crowd outside, and even brought out 2 massive jars of wine for free tastings. By the time the street guards hauled the 2 troublemakers away, the mood had shifted from a scandal to a celebration. I led Shanghai and the others back upstairs to finish my business. Meanwhile, at the Prince of Song's estate, things were much darker. Qian Kai, the manager of Dingfu Restaurant, had rushed to the capital prefecture to bail out his brother-in-law, Ning Er. The officials there had sent him packing with a single sentence: "Your brother-in-law offended Prince Chu." Qian Kai felt the world spinning. He collapsed on the ground. When he got back to his restaurant, his wife started screaming and crying, demanding he save her brother. With no other choice, he went to beg his master. "Your Highness." Qian Kai knelt in the courtyard, his voice trembling with terror. Inside the hall, Shun Jingyu was wearing gold-plated finger guards. He held a strip of raw meat in the air. A dark, ink-colored bird suddenly lunged from its cage and snapped the meat up. "Good boy," Shun Jingyu smiled, stroking the head of the crossbill bird. The bird let out a piercing, screeching cry that made Qian Kai shiver in the dirt outside. Shun Jingyu finally turned around. "How long has he been kneeling?" "Half an hour, Your Highness," a maid whispered. "It's getting late. Prepare dinner," he said, ignoring the man outside entirely. The sun rose the next morning. "Is he dead?" Shun Jingyu asked as a maid helped him dress. I don't think so, Your Highness," she stammered. In the courtyard, Qian Kai forced his bloodshot eyes open. When he saw Shun Jingyu walking toward him, he tried to speak, but his lips were cracked and dry. His voice sounded like the screech of that black bird. "Bring him in," Shun Jingyu commanded. He sat on his throne, fingering a string of jade beads. 2 guards dragged Qian Kai inside and forced his mouth open, pouring a ladle of water down his throat so he wouldn't die just yet. "Qian Kai," Shun Jingyu said softly, "do you know what you did wrong?" I know, Your Highness. Please spare me." Qian Kai crawled forward, banging his head against the floor. Clink! A gold-fingered guard hit the floor in front of him. Qian Kai stared at it, confused. "It's for you," Shun Jingyu said with a chilling smile. Qian Kai didn't dare refuse. He grabbed the gold piece with shaking hands. He knew his master well. If you didn't take what he gave, the alternative was far worse. "I always heard one of my 3 older brothers was behind Zuaishan Restaurant," Shun Jingyu mused to himself. I never expected it to be my good younger brother who's been gone for 5 years. Old Sixth, you really do keep surprising me. How interesting. He looked down at the manager. Qin Kai, your brother-in-law is the accountant at Dingfu, isn't he? Yes, your highness. Wen Wu, Shen Jingyu called out. A refined, elegant man in light robes stepped forward. Go with him to the capital prefecture. Qin Kai was overjoyed. He bowed until his head hit the floor again. The guards carried him out, following the elegant Wen Wu. Prepare the carriage, Shen Jingyu ordered. We're going to the Prince of Chu's estate. I wasn't surprised when I heard he had arrived. Fourth brother, I greeted him as he walked in. Sixth brother, congratulations, Shen Jingyu said, his voice smooth and charismatic. He sounded genuinely happy for me. I heard you're finally marrying your lady. I brought some small gifts. Please don't reject them. His guards opened a wooden box. Inside was an 8-piece set of jewelry, rings, earrings, bracelets, all made of pure gold and inlaid with priceless jade. It was dazzling. Thank you, fourth brother, I said, gesturing for my servants to take it. I gave him a natural smile. Among all the princes, he was easily the wealthiest. His mother, Consort Zhao, was the daughter of the richest family in Gusu. When the emperor rebuilt the capital years ago, the Zhao family paid for most of it. They were royalty in everything but name. I heard there were assassins the other night, Shen Jingyu said, folding his hands behind his back. I hope you weren't hurt. I walked through the courtyard, looking around at the walls and the stone paths. Even though my servants had cleaned up, the scars of the struggle were still visible. Chipped masonry and dark stains told the story of the night before. Don't mind the mess, fourth brother, I said with a bitter, weary smile. I made sure to look like a man who had barely escaped with his life. I was lucky to survive. My people, however, took the brunt of it. Many were injured. Shen Jingyu looked at the damage, his expression softening with pity. I happened to be well acquainted with the merchants at the Yahang market. A new batch of barbarian mercenaries just arrived. If you need more guards, sixth brother, I can put you in touch with them. I appreciate the offer, I replied, shaking my head slightly. But my estate is only so large. I don't think I have room for many more people. Tianwu City hasn't been peaceful lately, Shen Jingyu said, sounding genuinely regretful. You must be extra careful. Thank you for the warning. I'll keep my eyes open. We reached the pavilion and sat down. I gestured for the servants to bring out the exact same tea and snacks I had served Shun Tingfeng the other day. Shen Jingyu took a sip and his eyes lit up. Truly excellent tea, he praised. If you like it, please take some back to your estate. Then I won't be polite, he laughed. He leaned back, his gaze drifting toward the distant horizon. He let out a long, heavy sigh. You know, sixth brother, sometimes I really envy you and our fifth brother. I set my cup down with a light chuckle. Oh, one of us is about to get married, and the other spends his days wandering and playing. Is Consort Zhao pressuring you to marry again? He sighed again. His silence was all the answer I needed. Does fourth brother already have someone in mind? I asked, raising an eyebrow. I wondered if he had already met Gu Ruoi. In the original story, he was the first one to encounter her, followed by Shen Tingfeng. They usually spent dozens of chapters circling each other before the 100 Flowers Festival, where their first official meeting took place. Shen Jingyu shook his head with a faint smile. No, I just think things are fine the way they are now. I smiled back, keeping my thoughts to myself. I had almost forgotten his character trope. He was the eternal bachelor. To a man like him, women were just obstacles that slowed down his career. His mother's constant nagging only made him more frustrated. In the original plot, if Gu Ruoi hadn't appeared, people would have started whispering that he preferred the company of men. We chatted idly for a while, the conversation slowly drifting toward business and court affairs. Suddenly, Shen Jingyu reached out and grabbed my hand. I jumped inwardly. Was the plot changing that much? Did he actually have those preferences now? Sixth brother, he said, leaning in. He was smiling, but it felt strangely intense. It made my skin crawl. Beyond congratulating you, I actually came here to apologize. Fourth brother, what are you talking about? I played dumb, giving him a confused, awkward laugh. I don't understand. I'm talking about the incident at Zuaxian restaurant, he said, moving his face even closer. He explained what had happened after I left. The prefect of the capital, knowing he couldn't afford to offend either side, had imposed a massive fine. He sent the money directly to my estate. As for the manager, Qian Kai, he was released once the ransom was paid. Qian Kai's brother-in-law, Ning Er, had been a mess. His face was swollen like a pig's head, and because he'd lost his teeth, he could only make whistling noises as he cried to his sister's husband. As they were being escorted out by the refined Wenwu, Qian Kai noticed they were taking a detour through a deserted alley between high walls. Master Wenwu, Qian Kai stammered, his legs still trembling. This isn't the way back to Dingfu restaurant, is it? Wenwu turned around. His eyes were cold and terrifying. Before Ning Er or the other lackey could react, Wenwu's large hands clamped down on their heads. He pressed down with a sickening crunch. Qian Kai watched in horror as his brother-in-law's head was literally crushed into his chest cavity. Two headless corpses slumped to the ground. Qian Kai tried to scream, but no sound came out. Wenwu pulled out a silk handkerchief and calmly wiped his palms. "Remember this," he said softly. "Your brother-in-law and the waiter died in the capital prefecture's prison." Back in the present, Shun Jingyu stood up to leave. I watched him walk away for a long time. "Your Highness," my guard Mindu whispered, snapping me out of my thoughts. "The Prince of Song has gone." I let out a sharp breath, the corner of my mouth twitching. "My fourth brother certainly has a grand style." Mindu looked confused. "Well, Prince 5 brought nothing, but Prince 4 brought 8 sets of gold jewelry. That is quite grand." I turned to him. "Mindu, take the estate's accountant and go to Dingfu restaurant in the North Market. Complete the handover. That place belongs to us now." "What?" Mindu blinked. "Dingfu restaurant was famous in the city. How did it suddenly become ours?" "Don't just stand there. Go." As Mindu hurried off, I looked back at the direction Shun Jingyu had vanished. He hadn't just given me jewelry. He had handed me a gold mine. It was a test. He wanted to see if my iron hand was strong enough to hold on to such a heavy gift, and he wanted to see how the other factions would react. The Song estate, the Zhao family, Consort Zhao, they were a powerful web. But Shun Jingyu didn't want power. He wanted freedom. The Zhao family had kept him like a caged bird for years. Now, he was ready to spread his wings, and he needed a hand to open the cage door for him. That was fine by me. I had some old debts to settle with the Zhao family anyway. Unlike making friends with the hot-headed Shen Tingfeng, I preferred doing business with a big spender like the Prince of Song. When you helped him, he actually paid you. "Your Highness, Master Yinzai has returned." I went to my study, where Fuxing and Yinzai were waiting. "Is the old dog handled?" I asked. Yinzai bowed, his voice raspy. "Reporting to Your Highness, the withered northern elder was intercepted and killed 20 miles west of Tianmen Pass." I nodded. Yinzai was efficient. Unless he ran into a legendary land immortal like Lu Wenxuan, killing a high-level master was easy for him. However, the elder was a left protector of the demon sect. It wouldn't be long before they appointed a replacement. The demon sect was now a national religion in the surrounding kingdoms. After years of hiding, their strength was immense. They were just waiting for their sect leader to reach the divine realm before they marched into our great Qin Empire. "Any movement from the Evernight city after he died?" I asked. The demon sect kept soul lamps for their important members. When the person died, the lamp went out. They would have known the moment he took his last breath. "The bells in Evernight city rang 3 times, Your Highness." 3 rings. Are they calling a grand meeting? I let out a cold laugh. "Tell the Silver Tigers to return to the association and wait for orders. Also, Fuxing, I need you to go to the southeast Sword Lake." Both men froze. I couldn't help but chuckle at their shocked expressions. "Don't overthink it. Tianwu City is getting dangerous. I need a decent weapon to protect myself. Take this with you. The sword will follow you once it sees it." I reached out, and an empty scabbard flew from the shelf into my hand. "Oh, and give my regards to that old man who's always fishing. Ask him if he's gone home empty-handed again today." Fuxing took the scabbard, a rare ripple of emotion crossing his usually expressionless face. I obey. After he left, I leaned back at my desk. The old dog was dead. The demon sect would pick a new protector and send new people to finish the mission. I couldn't push them into a corner yet, but I couldn't let them hide either. It was better to pick them off one by one, like a steady harvest. I opened my folding fan, feeling the faint intent of slaughter lingering on it. If I had taken the elder's head to the secret markets, I could have traded it for a lot of gold. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves of the pomegranate trees. Autumn was only 3 months away, and I knew that once autumn arrived, the real storms would begin. The northern barbarians were getting restless again. My rival, Shun Jinyu, felt he needed to play the dutiful son-in-law and help his father-in-law out. He snapped his fan shut, bored with the day's tasks. He had just handed over the Dingfu building to me. His subordinate, Wenwu, couldn't understand why he'd just give it away for free. Jinyu didn't like being questioned. He turned around, letting a blood-red crow land on his shoulder. He reminded Wenwu that he had taught him more than any scholar ever could. Then, in a flash of mental pressure, Wenwu felt his own throat being sliced open. It was a terrifying illusion, a near-perfect technique that made him feel death itself. Jinyu was warning him. He wasn't just a prince, he was a predator. Jinyu looked toward the horizon, thinking of his brothers. The crown prince, Shinmyukin, was a cultivation genius who had reached the freedom realm at 16. Then there was the prince of Jin, Shun Junyan, a hardened general with 10,000 elite cavalry under his command. Jinyu wanted more than a small family alliance. He offered Wenwu a chance to serve him in a much larger arena. Wenwu knelt, his heart racing, pledging his absolute loyalty. While they were plotting, I was enjoying my peace. For 3 days, I played the sick card. I told everyone the assassins had rattled my soul, and I was too weak for court or the academy. It worked perfectly. I spent my time with my silly girl, Yi Lian. When the sun was out, we went fishing or hunting. When it rained, we stayed in the study, drinking tea and listening to music. I started telling her stories from my old world, slightly modified to fit this one. I wanted to teach her about the complexity of the human heart through these tales. The rumors about her were finally dying down, so I pulled back some of my guards. As for the Dingfu building, the old manager had already fled the city. I wasn't in a rush to reopen it. I wanted to renovate it into a hot pot restaurant first. Then, Mindu brought me a letter. It was an invitation from Du Dunming, the son of Duke Ongua. I remembered him as a chubby little kid who was deathly afraid of insects. Since it was a day off for the academy, the young nobles were gathering on a flower boat on the Luo River. It was the typical high society scene: poetry, wine, and showing off. Du Dunming was an old friend, a real brother. I couldn't turn him down. Besides, I wanted to take Lian with me. She was too shy, and she needed to get used to these social circles. I wanted everyone to see her. I wanted them to know exactly who she was: the granddaughter of the war god, the daughter of General Yi, and my future princess. I headed to the Yi mansion. Old General Yi Tiance was out, so the butler, Old Fu, let me right in. I felt more at home there than in my own palace. When I told Lian about the party, she panicked. She was terrified of making a fool of herself and embarrassing me. I just laughed. I never planned on letting you stay home. Before she could protest, I swept her off her feet in a princess carry. I figured I might as well practice for our wedding night. Her face turned bright red, and she curled into my chest, her small hands clutching my robes. My maids, Jinxiu and Jinlian, were giggling like crazy in the corner. I told Jinxiu to grab a veil for her, and we headed out. The Luo River was beautiful. It was a massive canal that cut through Tianwu City, lined with shops and packed with massive flower boats. The air was filled with the sound of music and laughter. But as soon as I stepped off the carriage, I felt a sudden pang of regret. The boats were covered in beautiful, scantily clad performers dancing in the wind. If Lian saw this, she might think I was the kind of degenerate prince who spent all his time in places like this. I realized I had a lot of explaining to do. I blamed Du Dunming for this. Why couldn't he have picked a simple tea house for a gathering? Now, I had to fight to keep my reputation clean. Careful, Lian, I whispered, turning to help her down from the carriage. Even with the veil shielding her face, her eyes were sharp. She immediately noticed the flower boats lining the Luo River. Seeing the courtesans and the rowdy parties on the water clearly shocked her. She looked away quickly, her face flushing. "Your Highness, do you come here often?" she asked softly. I felt a cold sweat. It was exactly what I was afraid of. Du Dunming and his crew are always here, I explained quickly. But I've been away for 5 years. I haven't set foot in a place like this since I left. I wasn't lying. I had been on flower boats before, but usually to hunt someone down or gather intel. I had never stepped foot on the pleasure boats of the Luo River just for fun. Leanne seemed secretly relieved, but then she looked down, sounding apologetic. I'm sorry, Your Highness. I shouldn't have asked something so rude. I know what you're thinking, I said, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. Don't worry. I'm not that kind of man. I could say that with total pride. In both my lives, I had stayed pure. Even when I was wandering the world, I kept my heart focused on my cultivation. To me, women were just distractions on the path to power. But Leanne? She wasn't a distraction. She was my wife. I believe you, she said. That one sentence made me feel a strange surge of guilt. This girl was too innocent. I had to protect her, or someone would definitely try to trick her one day. We walked toward the riverbank, where Du Dunming was waiting. I left Jin Xiao, Jin Lian, and 2 guards to watch the carriage. Lian and I shared a small boat, while Cheng Hai followed in another. We rowed toward the largest flower boat, the Manhua Pavilion. As we got closer, the performers on the deck saw me. They started posing and waving, trying to catch my eye. Hey, handsome, come play with us, one shouted. Don't listen to her, come to me instead, another giggled. I felt Leanne's small fist tighten. I could tell she was wishing she had brought her zither from the study, just so she could play a song loud enough to make them all shut up. As our boat pulled alongside, several courtesans reached out their silk-clad arms to help me up. Suddenly, a dark shadow blurred past. Cheng Hai leapt onto the deck, forcing the women back with a cold glare. They shrieked in surprise. Cheng Hai turned and cleared a path for me. Young master, he said respectfully. He was smart enough to change how he addressed me in a place like this. I nodded, wrapped my arm around Leanne's slender waist, and used a light footwork technique to hop onto the deck. I'm sorry, gentlemen. A seductive voice drifted over before we even saw the speaker. This boat has been booked by several young nobles today. We aren't taking other guests. A thick scent of perfume hit us, drowning out the cheaper scents of the other girls. A voluptuous woman in her early 30s sashayed toward us. This was Huan Yang, the madam of the boat. She was in her prime, every movement dripping with charm. A weaker man would have lost his mind, and his wallet, the moment she looked at him. She raised her silk sleeve, letting it flutter in the wind, and pretended to stumble right into Cheng Hai's arms. Clang! Cheng Hai didn't even flinch. He kept his sword in its sheath, but used the hilt to shove her back hard. Huan Yang clutched her stomach, looking shocked and hurt. She looked up at Cheng Hai's zombie face and pouted, realizing he was just a stubborn soldier. She turned her attention to us. She noticed Leanne first. Even though Leanne was wrapped up and veiled, her elegant aura was impossible to hide. Huan Yang probably figured she was a noble daughter. Then, she looked at me. She saw my posture, the authority in my eyes, and the flash of gold at my waist. The words imperial royalty must have flashed through her mind like lightning. Oh, please forgive me, young master. Huan Yang's face transformed into a beaming smile instantly. Are you here by invitation? Yes, I said shortly. I signaled Cheng Hai to hand over the invitation. Huan Yang didn't even look at it. She immediately started bossing the other girls around. Make way for the guests. Follow me, please. The Manhua Pavilion was a giant among flower boats. It had 4 floors. The first was a massive hall with a stage. The second had private booths. The third was for VIP gatherings. And the fourth was full of bedrooms for those who wanted to stay the night. As we climbed to the 3rd floor, I heard music and loud laughter. Huan Yang knocked 3 times on a set of large doors. The noise inside stopped. Who is it? What do you want? Du Dunming's deep voice boomed from inside. Master Du, it's me, Huan Yang called out. Your guest has arrived. The floorboards groaned under heavy footsteps. The doors swung open, and a massive shadow fell over us. I looked up and blinked. A giant of a man stood there. Brotherin? No. Princin, I missed you so much. Before I could react, Du Dunming grabbed me in a massive bear hug and lifted me right off the ground. Dunming, I gasped, completely shocked. When I left Tianwu City, this kid was a short, chubby little ball. Now, 5 years later, he was a mountain. He was so big he barely fit through the door. Even if he'd been eating growth hormones, he shouldn't have turned into this. It's me, Brotherin. I missed you. He held me like a stuffed doll with his left arm while wiping tears and snot with his right. Put Put me down first. I strained. Oh, sorry, brotherin. He set me down with a sheepish grin. Huanyang watched him with a look of lingering fear. She was lucky this guy wasn't the type to play around, or her girls would have been crushed. Enjoy yourselves, gentlemen, she said, flicking her silk scarf across Chunghai's face as she left, leaving a trail of perfume behind. Brotherin, who's this? Du Dunming asked, looking curiously at Lian. She's my little follower, I said, taking Lian's hand and smiling. Oh, come in, come in. It's too windy out here. We walked inside, and Chunghai closed the doors behind us, standing guard like a statue. Inside the room, a group of young nobles and ladies immediately stood up to bow. Greetings, Prince of Chu. No need for formalities, I said. Every time this happened, I felt like a CEO walking into a board meeting. Brotherin, a pale, scholarly-looking young man called out softly. I paused, surprised. Chengzheng. This was Du Qingzheng, the second son of Duke Ongwa. He gave me a warm, gentle smile. It's me, brotherin. You two brothers have changed so much, I admitted. One used to be a fat ball, and the other was a skinny, dark kid who looked like a monkey. Now, they were completely different. Their father was a famous general, so I expected Chengzheng to be a tank like his brother. If the old duke saw them now, he'd be laughing in his sleep. After the greetings, everyone's eyes drifted to Lian. They were all dying to know who the girl holding the prince's hand was. Sit, brotherin. Du Dunming led me to the head seat. Once I sat down, I patted Dunming on the shoulder. I couldn't help myself. Seriously, what happened to you and Chengzheng? How did you change this much in just a few years? I was thrown into Uncle Ye's camp for training for a few years, Du Dunming said with a chuckle. My younger brother has been studying at the academy under Master Zhou. I noticed Lian's small hand tighten around mine the moment he mentioned Uncle Yi. There weren't many Yi families in Tianwu City, and she knew exactly who he was talking about. So you went to the battlefield? I asked. Multiple times. I even cut down quite a few barbarians, Dunming replied, his chest swelling with pride. He looked around the room and challenged the others. How many people here can say they've actually killed an enemy on the front lines? Impressive, I said, raising my glass. I'll drink to that. Thanks, brotherin. We finished our drinks in one go. As I wiped a drop of wine from the corner of my mouth, I continued. Is Uncle Ye's health still holding up? He's doing great. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have the strength to beat me every time I mess up, Dunming said with a pained expression. He blamed his own father for giving Yi Fen permission to discipline him. Whenever he stepped out of line, the man showed no mercy. The room erupted in laughter. Even Lian, usually so reserved, lowered her head to hide a giggle. By the way, brotherin, Dunming leaned in, his large face full of mischief. I heard you're marrying Sister Yi. The Du and Yi families were close, but the brothers had only seen Lian a couple of times in their lives. Their only lasting memory of her was those striking pale blue eyes. I said, setting my glass down with a faint smile. Is there a problem? Du Qingzheng, the younger brother, tapped Dunming on the shoulder and pointed toward Lian. Dunming's eyes widened as he looked at her. Brotherin's little follower is actually really pretty, Dunming whispered loudly. Chengzheng sighed and slapped his brother's back. Call her sister-in-law. What? Sister-in-law? Dunming rubbed his head, still not putting the pieces together. I turned to Lian and smiled gently. I gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Lian, why don't you take off the veil? The room went silent. Everyone held their breath, their eyes locked on her. Lian looked at me, seeing the encouragement in my gaze. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she reached up. The white silk fell into her lap. A face of peerless beauty was revealed to the world. Those iconic pale blue eyes seemed to hold the stars and the moon within them. The silence stretched as everyone took a sharp breath. She was stunning, so beautiful that the other noble ladies in the room felt a sudden wave of insecurity. The rumors were true. The girl from the Jinghua mansion really was a goddess descended to the mortal realm. Lian sat tall. She didn't hide from their intense stares. Instead, she looked back at each of them. She was my future princess, and she knew that showing weakness would only bring ridicule to my name. Her knuckles were white from gripping her dress, but she didn't flinch. She was fighting her inner fear for me. She was so brave and sensible that it actually made my heart ache. I cleared my throat to snap everyone out of their trance. Allow me to introduce her. This is my future princess, the daughter of the General of the North, Yi Lian. Lian greets everyone, she said softly. Her voice was cool and elegant, like a rare flower on a high mountain peak. Beautiful to look at, but impossible to touch. I am Pang Mu, son of the Marquis of Luqing. Greetings, Lady Yi, one young man said, quickly standing up. Soon, the room was a chorus of greetings and polite bows. Your sister Yi. Dunming grabbed his head with both hands, his face a mask of pure shock. Chengzheng just sighed again at his brother's slowness. Lian nodded, her tone softening slightly. It has been a long time, young Master Du. She didn't have many childhood friends, so she remembered the Du brothers well. Like me, she was surprised by how much they had changed. Sister Yi, no sister-in-law. Sister Yi. Dunming was so flustered he couldn't get his words straight. Call her sister-in-law, I said, patting his back. Lian's ears turned bright red. She looked like she wanted to punch me with those tiny fists of hers. I was making people call her that before we were even married. She was clearly dying of embarrassment. Right? Greetings, sister-in-law, Dunming shouted with a boisterous laugh. Greetings, sister-in-law, Chengzheng added, bowing formally. You are too kind, Lian replied. Please, just call me Lian. With us joining the table, the atmosphere became a bit more restrained. The young lords who wanted to show off their talents suddenly felt shy. The party split into smaller groups, with the ladies whispering and glancing toward the head seat. The Du brothers kept pestering me for stories about my 5 years away. Dunming drank heavily and bragged about his battles, while others listened like students in a classroom. To them, I was a window into a world they had never seen. They were like young eagles in a gilded cage, waiting for their parents to let them fly into a pre-planned sky. The world outside was interesting, but Tianwu City was its own kind of battlefield. They longed for the horizon, not realizing how many people were dying just to stand where they were standing. As the party wound down, Dunming was visibly drunk. He grabbed my arm, his face flushed. Brethren, next time you go out, you have to take me. I want to see the world too. Don't leave me behind. I'm strong. I can be your guard or carry your bags. Fine, I laughed. But don't regret it. The world isn't all fun and games. I won't regret it. Just don't ditch me, he slurred. Chengzheng helped his brother up, looking apologetic. Sorry, brethren. He's loved drinking ever since he got back from the north. It's fine. The north is cold. Wine is a necessity there, I said. Besides, I like his honesty. We walked out as the wind blew over the river, creating golden ripples in the light. The room behind us was a mess of leftover food and empty bottles. Did you have fun today? I asked Lian softly. Today was about building her reputation and letting her meet people her own age. I was very happy, she said, nodding. Her veil was tucked away now. It was her first time making friends who weren't her servants. She had received compliments, made plans to go shopping, and felt like she was living a dream. Well, since you promised to go shopping with them, you can't flake on them, I teased. Flake on them. Lian tilted her head, looking confused by the slang. I started, trying to explain. It means missing an appointment or breaking a promise, I explained. Lian nodded, her eyes wide with understanding. Lian has learned something new. I would never break my word to them. A soft blush crept up her cheeks, and her voice dropped to a shy whisper. I felt a bit awkward. I realized I might have just taught her slang she probably shouldn't be using in high society. It's getting late, I said, clearing my throat. Let's head back. Before she could move, I leaned forward and gave her a quick, soft peck on the cheek. The faint pink on her face instantly turned into a deep, burning crimson. Your Highness, she gasped, caught completely off guard. Her voice was thick with shyness, and she looked a little dazed, her head spinning from the sudden affection. You're too bad. You always attack when I'm not ready. What if someone saw us? It's not proper. Despite her words, she couldn't hide the joy dancing in her eyes. She looked conflicted, her thoughts racing so fast I thought her head might actually overheat. Finally, all that nervous energy turned into a tiny, weak fist that tapped lightly against my chest. She paused for 2 seconds, the air between us turning still and quiet. Then, she suddenly lifted her head, leaned in, and pressed her lips to my cheek. It was a fleeting touch, cool and soft, before she pulled away. I froze, touching my face where the faint dampness remained. I had teased her, but she had actually countered. By the time I looked at her again, Leanne had already lowered her veil. She pulled the brim of her hat down with both hands, looking like a little kid who had just been caught doing something wrong. That clumsy, adorable attempt to hide her face hit me right in the heart. I smiled, reached out, and naturally took her small hand in mine. "Let's go." She didn't say a word, only letting out a tiny, hummed sound of agreement. Outside, the sky was draped in gold and gray, the setting sun turning the river into a sheet of shattered gold. Shanghai stood by the boat, his long blade at his hip. In the fading light, his silhouette looked like a legendary general preparing for a great crusade. Even the experienced women from the pleasure boats couldn't help but steal a few glances at him. Too bad he had the personality of a stone statue. The door opened, and I led Leanne out by the hand. "Young master." Shanghai and the boat mistress greeted us simultaneously. "Time to go," I said. As our small boat drifted away, the mistress stood on the bow, waving her silk scarf. "Safe travels, young master," she called out sweetly. She was smart enough not to shout the usual "come back soon" while I was with a lady. She liked customers like us, high spenders, polite, and they didn't cause trouble for her girls. While I headed home, far to the southeast, lay the holy land of swordsmen, Southeast Sword Lake. Legend said this place was an ancient battlefield from another realm. A peerless sword immortal had once claimed it as his home. Eventually, he rode his sword east and never returned. Later, a clan of blacksmiths moved in, finding the rare ores they craved. They stayed for generations, and the swords they forged filled the surrounding plains. Then, a massive flood came from the east, drowning everything. The clan vanished, but their swords remained beneath the water. Centuries later, a traveling scholar fell into the lake. When the villagers pulled him out, he was clutching a rusted iron sword. Curious, the local youths dove in to explore. They were horrified to find the lake floor carpeted in countless swords. No matter how hard they pulled, not a single blade would budge. The scholar, however, lost his mind. He gave up his exams and sat by the lake every day, cradling that rusted blade. Years passed until one day, he stood up and laughed at the sky. "A green lotus glows in the eye. 3,000 worlds within one blade," he shouted. "I understand. I finally understand." Witnesses said the sound of 1,000 swords ringing filled the air. Green lotuses bloomed across the water. The scholar, dressed in green, stepped onto his sword and flew east, just like the legend before him. He became known as the poem sword immortal, Chufinga. Because of him, thousands of swordsmen flocked here, turning the lake into a pilgrimage site. Now, at dusk, the sun left only a blood-red streak on the horizon. A thick mist rolled over the water. At the end of a wooden pier, an old man in a straw raincoat sat hunched over, holding a bamboo fishing pole. Splash! The old man's drooping eyes opened. His withered hand jerked the pole up, and a fat carp flew out of the water. "You don't look like a swordsman," the old man muttered, unhooking the fish and dropping it back into the lake. "Why are you here?" "To take a sword," Fuxing replied, bowing low while holding an empty scabbard. "To take a sword, you jump in and get it yourself. Why bother me?" The old man paused, his brow furrowing. His voice turned cold. "Wait, you smell like that brat. You're here for his sword." "Yes," Fuxing said. "Damn it," the old man exploded, jumping to his feet and losing all his mystic master composure. He pointed a finger at Fuxing, screaming, "That brat used this entire lake to nourish his broken blade. Do you have any idea how much trouble that thing has caused?" Fuxing silently stepped back to avoid the spray of spit. Suddenly, the old man's face went grim. His cloudy eyes sharpened with a brilliant light. He gripped the bamboo pole with both hands, his muscles bulging. "Damn it, after all this time, you finally bit the hook." The massive lake began to churn. A giant whirlpool formed, sending waves crashing against the pier. Something terrifying was rising from the depths. "Get out here," the old man roared. His energy exploded, his body seemingly expanding as the bamboo pole bent into a sharp C shape. It groaned but didn't break. Boom! 100-meter curtain of water shot into the air from the center of the whirlpool. A roar that didn't sound like any animal shook the earth. Birds scattered, and the forest went silent with fear. As the water fell, Fuxing's eyes widened. Reflected in his pupils was a massive, black, five-clawed dragon coiling in the air. A dragon, a creature of myth. But as he looked closer, he realized it wasn't flesh and blood. The scabbard in his hand began to vibrate violently, resonating with the creature. This was the prince's sword. The black dragon let out a furious roar at the old man. Then, its massive body condensed, shrinking down until it was a 3-foot-long sword suspended in the air. "Humph, you beast," the old man grunted. "I should just destroy you today." He yanked the fishing line, which was wrapped around the sword's hilt, pulling it toward him. Suddenly, his head snapped toward the woods behind him. "You're going to hide?" he barked, his eyes blazing. He twisted the bottom of his fishing pole, drawing a hidden, thin blade. With a single strike, a massive wave of green sword energy tore through the pier, exploding toward the shadows.